The story of the king of the gorilla tribe starts in southern Oklahoma. In 1985, the Dawes family lost their newborn son in the jungles of Texhoma. Adopted by a family of bush monkeys, he emerged back into the human world as the Baron.
Witness the might of the Jabari! First time!
Imperious Rex. What's up, folks? Happy Independence Day. I made about a whole 4 minutes. Folks, I don't know if you know it or not. Hey, where'd my co-host go? What the? He was just there, I promise you. There he goes. What up?
Yeah, it was my fault. I hit the wrong button.
I thought you leaving me in the lurch.
Nah.
Ladies and gents, it's been a few nights. Welcome to the BDRP. This is the late show, but I was already late, and Imperious Rex was there. I don't know if you guys know. I don't know if I've even told my brother Merle here, but Independence Day is my favorite holiday of the year. I don't celebrate holidays at all, but I do like Independence Day because our forefathers, in their wisdom, as good old Brits, were standing there like a chessboard, wearing bright red sweaters, that we were behind cotton bales and jumping out of pecan trees. So the history of this country is one that intrigues me, and one that I'm pretty glad about, and proud of, because without the history of this country, I wouldn't be here. So happy Independence Day in its last 3 minutes. Hope you folks got to eat some barbecue and what do we do on Independence Day? Of course, pop fireworks, eat barbecue, spend time with family and friends. You can't beat it with a stick, Mr. Myrl.
No, you can't. I ate me some barbecue.
I didn't. I ate sushi.
Oh,
like a traitor.
My condolences.
Yeah, I know, man. I didn't even think about that until I said it. I ate sushi for dinner. But Myrl got to talk to one of my oldest friends in the world, one you're going to get to talk to tomorrow, and the great nephew of Oklahoma's last great medicine man, Buster Ned, his great nephew Jason Ned. And we're kind of recounting some of our old adventures, old war stories. And it made me think, when I ran to the store to get something to drink, so it's my fault, of course, that we're late. Captain of the ship making us late ain't good. But we're talking about some of the old crazy, I guess, ghost stories. We were doing all that stuff before Ghost Hunters was the thing, before Monster Quest and all that. And it just made me think, I say I've been doing this 8 years, but I kind of been doing it my whole life. And based off the stories that people would hear about us going out to the Yellow Hills, where, the little people and all that stuff are, they were trying to hire us to go into these haunted houses. Why, I'm sure I do not know. But I never really thought it was a great idea. We went to one, and I think they paid us like $20 a piece. And it was one of these so-called axe murder houses. And I didn't see or feel anything. And everything that they were saying, I found the source of it, and it was something natural. Like
who was
plastic?
$20 a piece?
It was some lady. Some lady wanted us to go out there and she gave us $20 a piece because she was afraid to go out there, and she wanted us to tell her what was going on.
How about that?
So technically, she wanted me to tell her what's going on. Everybody else was just kind of meandering around, and
you gave her any questionnaires, did you?
No questionnaires, none. I determined that her mental health was okay.
Okay.
Questionnaire. Damn questionnaire. But I was trying to think, did I know about pleading the blood of Christ and casting out back then? I'm not sure that I did, bro. If I did, I didn't think, it was an office that every born again believer could, one of those offices that we all have, that we all can partake in.
Thank God I knew about it from the time I was a kid.
Now I did know about rebuking, but I didn't know about pleading the blood and that being where the power is. I rebuke spirits over in southern Oklahoma, in the Yellow Hills, and Arkansas, and they seem to get some yonder for a little bit at least.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I was about 8 years old when I finally figured it out how to get rid of them. We were in this house, and there was something in that house. You couldn't get rid of it. I don't know if it was the house, it was tied.
I don't know if that's on my side. I don't want to interrupt, but I want everybody to be able to hear you. Can everybody hear? Okay, drop a 1 if you can hear us. Okay, you had some of that. You had a little bit of that going. It could just be on my side.
I had to clear my throat there for a minute. My throat was itching.
No, I don't think it was your throat. I think it was like it sounded like some interference a little bit.
Okay. That something would manifest in the closet up there. And, when I was a kid and I said lights out, it literally meant lights out, and we turn out all the lights, and that manifest, I could see its eyes in that closet. It scared me horribly. And
what color was his eyes?
They were blue.
They were blue?
Yep.
Gee, Monelli.
And I told my uncle about it. He was a preacher. He told me, he said, well, son, when you do something like that, all you have to do is tell it, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And they resist, but you just keep saying it, and it will go away. And I tried it the very next time, and I was a believer after that until I and decided to go wild. For a while.
Yeah, you're cutting out bad, bro.
Let's see what comments have said about it. How can everybody hear me? Drop a 1 in the chat if you hear me. It was Dee that was dropping. Okay, myself. Anyway, that thing quit coming back to that.
I just hooked up another mic. I'm sure this one. I mean, the sound thing on this way bigger. So.
Okay.
All right, yeah, I can hear you. Makes me miss Tate. That's all I can say. Good old Tate.
Hey, let me drop out and come back in.
Yeah, maybe that always usually fix it. Levi H. Levi H, there's 30,000 comedians that are out of work. I'm just saying. 30,000. Just, Marlene says 0. Dad gum. See, Marlene's word I trust. And she said 0. 0 to that hero. Oh, y'all can hear me good now, right? If you can't, I'm destroying the channel. Happy 4th, Julie Rose Sadie. Hope I said that right. Haven't seen you before in the live chat. Welcome to the BDRP Supernatural YouTube channel. I don't trust you no more, Levi. I can't risk it. I cannot risk it, Levi. So now, now that we can see you guys, you can hear us, we can see you, everything's beautiful. In keeping with tradition, I always like to recognize the people that take their time out to come to our live shows. Donna Stokes, who's been with the channel since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, when I was yet a young Jedi. And then we have Levi H., the next Chris Rock, Robert Clark, Marlene Cobb, Miss Laverne Gray, great to see you again. Sam Squatch 80, welcome to BDRP Supernatural. Roxy W, Yukon, my boy. I know I'm probably missing 80 people. Tina P. All right, awesome. Miss Julie says, first time to the live, but I've been watching your videos for a bit. I hope you enjoy them. I've been missing drops, but all that means is I get to do what I always want to do, is have a big drop. Give myself some breathing room. Oh, you there, Myrlin?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Am I breaking up now?
No, you sound a whole lot better. Outstanding.
Good deal.
Yes, sir. Steve Wolf, were you still in our prayers about the loss of your mother? God bless you. God rest her. We'll see her again drinking from the fountains of the waters of life that flow from God's throne. No doubt in my mind. So,
yeah, he definitely wasn't singing like Sinatra.
Who?
Oh, Blue Eyes.
Oh, Blue Eyes? No. Then he wasn't singing Chicago in there for you? He's singing Me and My Shadow. Have the Shadow Man doing Sammy Davis Jr.'s parts.
Yeah.
I'd jump out of a window if I heard anything on the other side of the veil singing anything. I wouldn't care what it was. MC Hammer, Merle, what's his name? Thurgood. What's that dude's name? Merle Thurgood. If I heard anything singing anything, because bro, that brings my mind back to those old tales of the Fae, like playing violins and singing around fires in the woods, and everybody say, well, that looks like a good time I want to be a part of, and they'll go and they'll hang out and
have a 20-year nap.
Yeah, have a 20-year nap. They'll always offer them some sort of a drink, and they say they'd party all night long, and by the time they got back to their camp, there'd be houses built.
They say never take any food or drink from them.
Never take food or drink. But they appear to be humans. Like everything I've read, they don't say that they say they're fairies or the fae, but they say they're beautiful women. You know what I mean? And everybody's having a good time. Growing up in southern Oklahoma, that's nothing unusual. You see a bunch of folks in the woods around a fire singing and having a good time. You know, they hear you or see, hey, come on over. All right. Have you a good old time and go back to your camp early in the morning and forget all about it. That's scary. Not a lot of stuff scares me, bro. But that's a scary notion. Like when Tex and I went to that cemetery, we lost 5 hours.
Yeah,
I think that was something spiritual, though, bro. I don't think that we were kidnapped by no aliens or nothing like that. I think we may have walked through a door and walked right back out of it, but because of the time displacement, that amount of hours had passed.
That's very
there's no holes in my memory. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember everything distinctly.
I'll tell you a little secret. That was one of the things we were taught to look for when we were when I was climbing cell towers. That was one of the symptoms they told us to look out for, time loss. They
told you to look out for what now?
Time loss. You'll be doing something to look up and 30 minutes has passed or an hour. Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead? Because we've been teasing with. Why don't you go ahead and hit them with your theory of the infrasound that people experience, folks? If you don't know, infrasound is what a lot of people subscribe to, and they attribute the time loss and all that other kind of stuff to infrasound. Now, infrasound is the low guttural sounds that you hear coming out of wolves or especially big cats, and it freezes their prey in terror. it'll freeze you in terror if you ain't got the wherewithal to stay in your right mind. That's what folks attribute way, way more than they should be to. And I've heard them do that deep guttural growl, bro, and it didn't do anything to us. It scared the shit out of us, but that's about it.
Well, when I was a kid, we lived by one of the top biggest zoos in the world. It was one of the top 10, the Birmingham Zoo. And I saw lots of lions and elephants and wolves. And I never lost no time. I never knowed of any people that worked there having high cancer, taking their clothes off, walking around doing crazy stuff.
Yes. That's the one that got me. That's when I really started, when Pilates' book, I forget which one, Missing 411, one of the Missing 411 books, when it started mentioning how the clothes of this person who died of hypothermia, no marks, no unusual traces on the skin of struggle. They just took off their clothes, went and sat down by the water and froze to death. And there was other cases where people were hearing a low humming sound. And they said they felt like they were super duper hot. And they would get up, take their clothes off, fold them neatly, like they're going to come back and put them on, and just walk towards where this noise was coming from. I've never heard infrasound doing that. That if it is, that's something programmed. Like the infrasound's not a wave that can have like you know, the 5G signal. How technically you can program something to coincide with that signal and send some sort of a vibrational frequency through that would make or compel someone to do something of that nature. That's different than infrasound, right?
Yeah.
Way different. So,
well, like I told you one time, when I was working doing that, a lot of people don't realize those towers have radio carriers on them as well. And they're microwave, just like the cell phone. You can, weeds that grow up there around the tower, if they fall over and hit the tower, they'll go to arcing. Just like a spark plug arcs. But when it arcs, you can hear the music. And sometimes, if you're around highly mineralized rock, the rock will put off that sound close to the tower.
That's interesting.
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
They make you take a class before you do it. And it's mostly safety. You know, they walk you through how to fill out your paperwork when you get there. First thing you have to do is you have to find the local hospital, the closest hospital with an emergency room. And you have to call them, tell them that to be prepped that there may be somebody coming in with radiation burns. Then you have to call the FCC, double check that the tower's off before you touch it, because it'll kill you. And when they teach you that, they also teach certain things to look out for. People being disoriented. Watch the people you're working with. You ever start walking around in circles or acting like they're just on autopilot. Sometimes you'll lose time. And they say by the time that you go to feeling heat on your skin, you're probably already dead. And you just don't know it yet.
All of those things sound like what people attribute to these creatures. Time displacement, feeling disoriented or confused, the skin burning. And I haven't heard that too much, but I have heard it. So the frequencies, the radio waves. And and there's one that you mentioned that is crazy enough, and that's what made me really start looking at this theory as probably being fact. There's a piece of footage on the channel right now with it looked like Dogman or something. The grass was dead, and they were off behind these trees. And it looks like mud caked up against these trees, but that wasn't there with the naked eye. I don't know what that stuff was, what turned up on the film, but you couldn't see that with the naked eye. You could just see these things peeking from behind this tree. And it was a good, I'd say 60 yards, somewhere around in there.
Yeah.
And it was across this field. So I felt comfortable enough to get out and walk up to the edge of the field. And then I walked a little bit closer and start filming. Well, as I was filming, I got that little small piece of footage. And this was over the course of a great day of filming. All of a sudden, my phone, I thought it rang, but when I pulled it out of my pocket while still watching these creatures, I was hearing a voice come out of it, and it sounded like the radio. Then it sounded like one of these ghost boxes you hear where it's flipping through the radio real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard that, meow, I was gone. I was out of there. I was driving the vehicle before it even started. Like, that makes sense. The radio waves. Plus, it's really mineral rich in these river bottoms. You find these river rocks or river stones, they call them, the quartz and all sorts of things that are known to hold and contain energy.
Yeah. That's also where you find all that black sand, and that black sand is pure iron.
Pure iron. So you have
It
all
would
these
also-
conductive metals and stones around there. What would the radio waves do to them?
Well, certain mineral compositions, you don't always get it, but if you have the right combinations of minerals, it will literally pick up radio waves. You can hear the music when you get close to the rocks.
How would that make my phone look? I mean, phone look. How would that make it sound like a radio though?
Well, I don't think the rocks think your phone was just picking up the radio waves because they're so high and intense. We carried shielded radio, but if that tower was on when we got there, it would interfere with our radios and the batteries on.
Wow, that's madness. So that would mean these creatures are somehow producing these radio waves.
Yep.
But they're organic creatures.
What about all that ethereal stuff around them? How organic are they?
Not very. Not at all.
Also, I've actually seen people taking those trial meters out with them into the field when they're doing these Bigfoot hunts. There's only one thing that sets off a trifield meter, and that's microwave radio transmissions.
That's madness, bro. And
You
and, I
remember-
always go ahead. I'm sorry.
You remember on the Dogman cam stuff, Vault went out there with that trial meter and it was going off.
It was indeed. There was all sorts of stuff going on with that Dogman Cams project on his property, though, like orbs, some gelatinous looking, ghostly yet physical thing that was moving around with intelligence. Somebody said it was a bug, but it was interacting with the environment, not just in front of the camera. What else was it? We found this thing that looked like a cloaked demon alien thing. You know, like a lamb, Aleister Crowley's lamb. It looked straight up like that with a cloak on, and it was floating above this physical Bigfoot creature.
Well, you know about the Philadelphia experiment, right?
Yeah, I know the Philadelphia experiment, but I guess for the people who don't, you want to do a quick footnote run through. What's up, Michael Gordon? Happy 4th, brother. Happy Independence Day.
Back during World War II, they did experiments supposedly on a ship. And they put these generators on there and microwave emitters. What?
You were cutting out again, bro. Can you repeat?
No,
just
I
repeat that
stopped
last
for a
sentence?
second. They had these generators, microwave radio transmitters. And supposedly Nikola Tesla, Einstein, and another big guy, I can't remember right this minute, worked on the project. And they made it invisible. And supposedly it phased in and out of time. The ship disappeared.
It disappeared and reappeared in 1984, I believe.
That's what one of the guys said. And then when it came back, after they destroyed the generators, there was people fused into the hull of the ship.
I'm not going to say the name of the person, but I've got it on good account from somebody who worked for NASA that is one of the most, what would you call it? I have 10 tons of respect for him, and he has more integrity than a lot of people in this field. He confirmed seeing pictures of that because he had this, type of black vault status, I guess I don't know. They give civilian employees that have secret passes a certain level of key cards, where they can access certain files in certain parts of the building. And he was let into those archives, and he looked up the Philadelphia experiment. And you're right. There was stuff like, he said when he looked at it, the one picture he saw before he put it back was a dog infused into the hull. And I asked him, I was like, could it have been like some sort of optical illusion? He was like, D, this was a dog infused into the hull. Look at me right in the eyes. I was like, oh, whoa.
Yeah. Well, I have to be careful what I say about certain things. That's why I say repeatedly, but work I used to do. I used to do it for sometimes.
And for all who don't know, Myrlin was a British assassin.
3, huh?
That's right. The Kingsman.
Anyway, if you can make a ship disappear with those radio waves, could you make an animal disappear with?
Huh. That's very interesting. And like the one piece of footage that's on the short, those 2 Sasquatch standing on a bank. It didn't look like they were doing anything themselves. It looked like something that was over them activated.
Yep. It makes sense when you think about it.
It makes sense, but how are these spiritual, and this is what I believe, just same as you, it's these spiritual entities, these ethereal beings, and I won't get into their points of origin, because we technically don't know. I think that a lot of them, if not all, are the adversary, but I don't know that for a fact. So these ethereal beings that you see all around these physical ones, I mean, they're all over the place. They are somehow through, like I think I've seen somebody say ectoplasm or whatever the case is, doing the same thing that this technology did. But if that's the case, these Bigfoot, these Dogman creatures, who these spiritual entities are shielding or hiding, are they going somewhere else like that ship did in the Philadelphia experiment?
People seem to think they're going through portal.
I don't know. I think we've talked about the Lord of the Rings before.
Yeah.
Like the ring, how when you put that ring on, you turn invisible. But for the wearer of the ring, they're in Mordor.
Yep. As well.
Say again?
What are the angels called in the Bible?
They're called lots of things. Stars, sons
there
of
you
God.
Go. What do stars put off?
What do they put off?
Yeah.
Light.
And microwave.
That's what NASA tells us.
But
how could they do that if they're fixing? How could they do that if they're fixing the
radio
firmament?
telescope? They put off microwave radiation.
Did you put them on a Mylar balloon?
No, your satellite is on the ground.
What about the firmament?
What about it?
I'm just giving you
the water in the atmosphere. There ain't no dome over there like flat earthers talk about.
Well, maybe they will. Well, let's just say there is. Let's say there's a dome over the earth, which it could be either or, technically. But tell them the verse that you told me about making the nest in the stars.
Yeah, I can't remember which one it is, but somewhere in the Bible it's talking about. I think Revelation said, "Your nest stars will drag you back down." The Lord talking about the time when He comes back that we'll have in the stars.
Am I the only one hearing this? Because nobody's saying anything. Maybe it is just my headphones. Because like every other word's cutting out. I wish sometimes this whole system could morph into a single entity that I could punch in the nose, tell it to straighten up. I'm going to look that up, though. That is really interesting.
Oh yeah. And for which one was it? Somebody asked in the chat, are those cell towers weapons? They definitely are.
Whoa, what?
Yeah, somebody in the chat were cell towers weapons.
I guess they are because, like you said, what do the cell towers and the brains have in common?
They run on the same frequency. Every cell tower in this country runs on the same frequency range as the human brain. Not only that, the military has a weapon called a LRAD. It's an acronym, LRAD. I can't remember what it stands for at the moment, but it's a direct energy weapon, and they can use it to disperse crowds, transfer information verbally, or even make your skin heat up to the point that you will run to get away from it. They use it for crowd dispersion, and they use it to protect battleships. All of our warships have them on them. So when pirates up to the ships or anything like that, they can turn it on and point it right at them, and they will skin out.
I was watching Discovery Channel one day.
Frequency.
I don't know if it was the same device, but I'm pretty sure it was. But that's it's heavy duty, bro. I'm sure it's just a big coincidence, though. I mean, there's only so many ways that you can use, right? Like they just happen to tune it to the same one as the brain and say, "Oh, let's use this one." And later on that day, hey, did you know that we tune that to the same frequency as brain waves? They said, "Well, gee whiz."
Yeah, there's this big, huge spectrum that they use, and they just use one little tiny portion of it. You know, the same portion that is in at the same frequency as a human brain.
I don't think people understand now that I'm starting to subscribe to everything that I'm being told on the news. So I'm just getting practice in. Everything we're told on the evening news is what's really going on. Because I don't want no smoke. I woke up one night and I was like, man, I've seen monsters. Showed people these monsters that aren't supposed to exist. Like ghosts, tell them that what aliens really are. Like, how much longer before they come in here and take me out of this place? Put me in Guantanamo Bay. So I'm just going to start, I realize now that not everything is a conspiracy theory. There's only 3 ways that you can use. So they had one of 3 choices. Right? Isn't that how it goes?
Sure it is.
Oh, Lord. It's Obadiah 1:4. Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 4. The infallible text says, though you soar like the eagle and make your nest among the stars, even from there I will bring you down, declares the Lord.
There you go.
Boy, that's heavy duty. So there goes the trip to Mars, Elon Musk.
Well, you can go, but he's going to bring you back.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. If we're going according to this verse, though you soar like the eagle and make your nest, not seek to make, and make your nest among the stars, even from there I will bring you down. That's heavy.
Yep.
But of course, that's the as they see it, a book of fairy tales and whatnot.
Yeah, they believe it more than most people that call themselves Christian.
Yeah. Oh, well, somehow we've convinced ourselves that these people that worship at the altar of science aren't religious. They're religious to the bone. Michio Kaku, I believe his name is. Bro, I have to send it to you when I run across it again. I'm going to use it for the next CERN thing I'm putting together. But you could see his eyes light up like a kid at Christmas when he's talking about the Kabbalah. And he's talking about the scientific merits of some of the theorem put forth in the Kabbalah.
Well, who was it that came up with the formula for the atom bombs?
Allegedly, some sort of rabbinical priest, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have to get confirmation on that, but I have heard that a lot. A lot of honest folks. What are they doing coming up with?
And who were the first scientists? supposedly that came up with the theory that there were 11 dimensions?
Sir Isaac Newton.
The rabbis came up with that over 1,000 years ago. Well, 2,000 years ago.
And before that, there was not the 9 dimensions. And
Yep.
Across the board, I mean, everywhere, all the old ancient religions that bleed into today, the Norsemen, the Orishas, the Indian Hindus, Christians, there's 9 different realms or 9 different dimensions. So I used to know it for Christianity: Sheol, Hell, Sheol, and Tartarus. Then there's the first, second, and third heaven. That's 6, and I forget the other 3. But it's all based or backed up biblically. And then
there's only 9 that can be known by man. Well, not by man, but they can be known. The other ones are that can't be seen.
He made everything both visible and invisible, seen and unseen.
Yeah.
It's crazy when you start looking. I don't want to take comparative religion classes, but when you really start looking at all these religious texts, the amount of overlap or the truth. And I always use the anchor of the Bible, but it's kind of wild when you look at, for instance, the Bhagavad Gita or whatever it's called, which is just, I don't suggest anybody read it. It's a pretty cool read, but when you really start looking at it and seeing what can coincide or what does coincide with the Bible, it kind of give you a little bit of a start. You know what I mean? Like, they're all the fallen angels, obviously. And their retelling of the world's beginning is very similar across the board too. It's almost like whatever little g God and their priests, they wanted to pervert that part of it. But there's only so many lies you can tell before you have to get to some truth.
Yeah. The thing that freaks me out about the Bhagavad Gita is how much of it's like what would you call it? A manual.
A how-to manual.
A technical manual.
Yep.
Telling you how to build these Viamana flying ships and atom bombs, basically.
And they go into vast detail. That's the crazy part about it. It's not just some like, oh, well, the materials they use were X, Y, and Z. They tell you dimensions and stuff.
Yeah.
But, that's all fairy tales, because the ancient world was filled with Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon who would do good to, start a fire.
Well, when you go to other countries where people have religions and things like that, and even in Russia where they are Christians, the stuff that we're talking about wasn't taboo like it is here.
Which is strange.
You go to those countries, you talk about a UFO, they say, yeah, what about it? They've always been here.
Bro,
talk about a Bigfoot, they say, yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to say the newscast. They put it on YouTube, and people were saying, oh, that's one of these people in a suit. That wasn't a person in a suit. That was really one of these little ones that they somehow captured. Just the way it moved. I mean, I found it not too long ago, but it's a whole lot shorter than the original one. And the original one, it was, pulling on the bars of the cage, and it dropped down to all 4, and it walked like a gorilla. And then it got back up on another part of the cage. That part's been cut out of the one that I could find. But there is one that I'll show you guys. It's, I've been looking at a whole lot more evidence here lately, and man, it's filmed in Russia. And it's this family, for whatever reason, the dad seems like he's probably a DOS or something, because he's staying just out of way of danger, but still trying to see what's going on. And that just seems like, the way of the DOS. But it's
the way of the Merle, too.
Yeah, right. He'll drive forward a little bit. It's this footage of this Bigfoot running on all 4s, and he'll drive a little bit down the road and then stop, and you can tell he's looking out the window. You can hear him talking to his family. And the poor kid in the back seat, like, she was tripping out. But as this thing is barreling across this field at them, at one point in time, they're driving like at least. Say again?
He was keeping up with their car.
He was. and it cut this field. I mean, the intelligence of these things. At one point in time, it cut the field because it knew that the road was going to like kind of arch and turn. And it was at that point, it got right on top of their car. People call these, oh, well, they're the Great American Wood Ape. Wood ape's ass.
Yeah.
You go out there thinking you're dealing with an ape if you want to.
Yeah, we're the only country that even tries to pretend like it's an ape.
I'm glad we do, honestly. Could you imagine, bro, if
you know
this was
what I
common
mean.
knowledge? Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Everywhere else, like look at that park in China. They have a big arch where it's a mother and the child. You can drive underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty accurate to what they look like.
But in Chinese lore, they don't consider them to be monkeys or apes.
Say it one more time.
Over there in China and Tibet and places like that, they don't consider them to be apes.
No, they say there's some type of people.
Exactly. But they're spiritual. They're in and out of the spiritual realm. They're not just physical, even in their lore.
Well, brother, that's sort of what some of the Indian tribes say. They're the protectors of the spirit world.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me think for a long time. They're the protectors of the spirit world. That just kept ringing in my ears. Now, what are they protecting? Are they protecting the spirit world from us? I don't think so.
No.
Are they protecting us from the spirit world? Now, look at most of these cases. Most of the cases you find, no matter how scary they sound, it's always somebody going into the woods on the peripherals, more than likely, being chased out of the woods. I can tell you for an unequivocal fact, folks, there's other stuff in there besides these Bigfoot and these Dogman.
Oh, yeah.
It'd make Bigfoot and Dogman look like a joke at a picnic. The first time I took a prolonged absence away from the field, it was about 1.5 years, 2 years maybe after I first started. And I got comfortable enough where I was going in there deep by myself. I knew where they were. I thought I knew about what they would do, but I always proceed with caution. I always listen to the Holy Spirit and my own gut. You know, there'd been times that I'd gone and parked, did my little ritual where I'll roll down the windows and smoke a stogie, you know, kind of take everything in, and I'd back right back out and leave. You know, I just, you could feel it in the air. Well, I pressed my luck one day. I could kind of feel that, but it was faint. I was like, I'm sure it'll be all right. And I go through there and you can just feel them on the other side of the trees. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden it's like the woods came alive and you could hear them and kind of see them through the brush. They took off, and there was like 3 or 4 of them in different little areas, but they all ran in the same direction. And it was like this invisible wave, this invisible wind came, and it was coming from what in the opposite direction in which they ran. And when it hit me, I wanted to run. I wanted to run with them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what that was to this day, but it wasn't nothing good. I can guarantee you that.
Well, another little thing that, like I've told you before, you remember I told you I went out onto this place called Mon Island and was working on one of those towers, and the mosquitoes was just, it was unreal how much of them there were in the air. And I was concerned about it when we were pulled up in the truck. I said, how are we going to do anything out there with all these mosquitoes? And it was one of the first jobs I'd done, and definitely the first one I'd done with mosquitoes like that. And the guy started laughing. I said, what are you laughing about? He said, you ain't going to have to worry about no mosquitoes on that tower. I said, what do you mean? He said,
that's what I thought.
Just watch. We get out of the truck and walk out there, and it's like a wall. The mosquitoes will get only so close to it and no closer. When you walk through it, there are no mosquitoes. And one of the first things I noticed when I was a kid hunting in the woods, first time I noticed these things, is you can feel their presence long before they get there, of course.
Yes, yes.
I mean, to the point where you could close your eyes and point at them.
Yep.
And they push mosquitoes, gnats, flies, and all that away as they come. That's why it gets quiet like that. You're not hearing nothing buzzing or chirping.
And my first experience with the alpha female and the one that ran up, like did that weird spider thing, bro.
Yeah.
Remember, I was telling you my daughter was slapping my back to the point where I thought she was just trying to be funny. And when she showed me her hand, it was like I had a bunch of blood on it. Man, them mosquitoes tore me up. They tore me to pieces because us old eggs, They love that O negative blood. It's like Kool-Aid on a hot summer day.
Yeah.
And like you said, you could see them. There was a wall of mosquitoes and flies. And like when you say wall, it was literally like a wall. And when we walked through that, that's when the atmosphere changed, and that's where they were.
That's what it brought it to mind for me, was that wall of mosquitoes and gnats and flies.
And so you're saying that it's the radio waves do something like to keep them away?
Yes.
Shit, fire. So what experiment could I run out there with these radio waves? Like, could I take a microwave and like take the door off of it and put them prongs down and like just take a generator and just blast them and they'll like come out of the ether or something?
That is possible. It would be better to take the transducer out of the microwave and get a couple of them.
Yeah.
And get something like a rain gutter to use for a wave guide.
It won't hurt them or nothing, though, will it?
Hurt what?
Them squatching things. I don't want no smoke. I don't want to go out there and blast them with something. They'd be like, "Hey, man," you know what I mean? Like, I'm a pretty good situation.
It's according to how close they were.
They're going to be close. They're going to be within like 20, 25 feet.
I would back up a little bit before I tried it, or just use one. Just use one transducer out of a small microwave. But yeah, right. You could try that.
Yeah, I just don't want them whooping my ass. You know what I mean? Like coming out of there and being all offended.
I'm pretty sure it would have a similar effect on them as it does on us if it was directed at them.
So in other words, somebody else needs to conduct this experiment while I observe.
Yeah, that would work.
Gotcha.
They could hang back a little ways. Do it to it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I remember thinking about that. If it does the same thing to them that it does to us, they ain't going to be happy. They're going to be mad about it.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's them that's doing it. I think it's the things that's with them doing it.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, they're always, it might as well be, these things are always around them.
Yeah.
Except for the time that we went on that trip with Chasing the Beast, Oklahoma Chasing the Beast, Chuck Schlabs. Speaking of Kumbo, that was his next stop to do a show. He was his co-host. But it was the combination of the BDRP field team and the Chasing the Beast field team. And that night, there was, I believe, 13 people out there. And we all fellowship. We sat around the fire. We fellowship. We laughed.
And that's why they weren't there.
And they weren't, bro. And when we looked on that FLIR, you could see them. They were on their bellies like a little kid in 1944 listening to the radio. They were like on their bellies, propped up on their elbows, just listening to us. And they got so comfortable. One walked directly behind me and this other cat. And I forget who it was that sat across from us. I think it was Mr. Glass who I bought Vanna White from. But he was like, he looked around. And I seen his face when it happened. And I heard whoever it was walk behind me. But again, we're sitting in camp. One of those squatch got close enough to where he saw him walk behind us and thought it was one of us going to go pee.
Yep.
And we,
well,
and
when
I
you
mean,
get out there having fellowship.
Yeah, exactly. That right
I
there
don't
tells
think
me
the flesh beings are necessarily all over evil or anything, but I think that stuff that hangs around them is.
Well, shit, yeah, it is, bro. They got evil cat eyes and got cartoonishly weird features like huge teeth as big as daggers and stuff like that sometimes. Like all that ethereal stuff around them, I've never seen anything that looks cool or angelic. But
I think it's the spirits of their ancestors.
Those actual Nephilim. Or not Nephilim, I'm sorry. The Gabarines.
Gibberine. Yep. I think it's their spirit.
Educate the folks on that as well.
Sure, why not?
A whole show on that. All right, folks. We're gonna have a little Sunday school. Now, everybody says or just to ask you guys, what is the offspring of the fallen angels? First one, drop it in the chat, gets the prize, which is a thorough attaboy from me and Merle. What do you call the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of man? I know y'all know this one. Roxy's an O-neg. See what she put? I told you.
Yep.
I got to talk to this Roxy lady. She knows what's what. So what do you call them? And nobody. All right, Laverne Gray. Awesome. She's the one who.
Roxy did too.
Did she? I'm still trying to find that other video. Sorry, Roxy, but Roxy and Miss Laverne got it right, but it's wrong. That Michael Gordon got it right. An abomination.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But the Nephilim are actually the fallen angels. Now, you take it from here, Merle.
All right. The Nephilim comes from the word Napha. It's the Hebrew word root means to fall. That's what Napha means, to fall. Nephilim are the fallen ones.
The Elim, and that L always is some sort of
personal identifier.
Yes, a personal identifier, and it's used a lot in names of God,
and in the names of tribes as well.
Yes,
like
that's exactly
Anakim,
right.
Raphaim. However, when they mated with humans, they had offsprings. In the Bible, it calls them mighty men. But if you look it up in the Strong's Concordance, it calls them the Gibborim.
The Gibborim. And these Gibborim were actually a tribe that appeared in, I believe, Genesis? Or was it Exodus? Is it somewhere in the Pentateuch, the books of Moses?
Yeah, they're in Genesis.
They are in Genesis. It talks about them, but Joshua actually goes up against them. So when you hear people talk about the Nephilim or the Nephal are literally the fallen angels. They're not the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of man. That's somehow been conflated because of people selling books and whatnot. And I'm not downing these folks at all. The Steve Quells and Mr. Horn, they're brothers in the faith. Absolutely are. There's no doubt in my mind. They're my brothers in the faith of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That being said, that is something that we're going to start. Well, I can speak for myself. I'm going to start being more careful about, because calling them the Nephilim is not biblical. It's just not. They aren't the Nephilim.
Those offsprings weren't necessarily giants either.
They weren't. It's in the Bible.
It came from the word gigas in the Greek, which it means earthborn.
Earthborn. And in Latin, I believe, it happens to mean giant in that language. But in any event, what people are calling the Nephilim aren't. And when we look at Greek mythology, all this stuff's connected. It's all connected. The sons of the Titans were the little G gods.
Yep.
What were these like Gilgamesh and who else was there? Hercules and all they were the little G gods, right? Yep. So the war of the Titans and the gods was literally, I think, the war that took place in Enoch, in the book of Enoch.
Yeah. There's other, what would you call them?
Apocrypha?
Sort of, yeah. That too. Extra biblical text as well that talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
Like the War of 1,000 Giants. Og, the king of Bashan.
Whose bed was 19 feet long or something like that?
13 feet.
13. Because by then, I think it all had been watered down.
Yeah. Because they were generations away from it.
Mm-hmm. A lot of generations away from it.
Yeah. The Anakim, they were the long-necked ones. That's what Anakim means. It means they had a long neck. The Raphaim There was 12 tribes of them, just like there was 12 tribes of Israel.
Yep.
The Kenites. There was lots of them.
Then the Kenites were scattered through the valleys. I think it even says that somewhere, because they were like a tribal people.
Yep.
So you'd have, some Kenites here, Kenites there. And that's why when Joshua, and I hope I'm not attributing this to the wrong person, it may have been Gideon, but I'm pretty sure it was Joshua. When God said, kill every man, woman, child, the cattle, and burn the grass, he wasn't saying that because he was mad at a group of people. He was saying that because every man, woman, child, all their cattle, and the grass itself had been corrupted away from what he intended it to be. He didn't have a hand in the making of any of that stuff. So that's why it was an abomination. It was contaminated. It was polluted and contaminated, and it was an abomination unto him.
Yep.
And Enoch, the angels went before the throne of God, practically pleading to him, like, do you see what's going on the earth? Can we go down there and smoke some game, please? And that's what, according to the book of Enoch, compelled God to actually move his hand. It was the archangels, the ones that said, man, this is a bunch of BS. Like, what's going on down here?
And God said before the flood that all flesh had been corrupted, other than Noah and his family and their wives. So it had got a long ways.
And we spoke of that right before we got on, a little bit earlier, how I always thought that that's what compelled God's hand to move. Not these monsters, but because man's heart was wicked without cease. Well, that's still true. Man's heart was wicked without cease. Plus, man was not as God had made him to be.
Correct.
Noah
because
was perfect
you notice
in his generations.
What it calls them in the Bible, in Genesis, like Genesis 6, for instance, it calls them mighty men.
Mighty men. That's exactly right. Samson was a mighty man of God.
Yes. God gave men the abilities of those things when he put his spirit upon them.
Yep.
But unless he put his spirit upon them, they were just men. But the ones that had it all the time, they got it from somewhere else. But they were called the same thing.
So David's mighty men and Samson, they didn't necessarily have these abilities 24/7 like these creatures.
Yes and no. There's one group that David encountered, the lion men of Moab.
Right.
And they came and asked, could they fight with him? And David took it before the Lord, and the Lord said yes.
He did. And that always confused me, because when it talks about them being mighty men, I always assumed, and this is, as a young Christian, I always assumed that they were like real lion men. They were like some sort of cryptid. Or a better comparison would be the Cynocephali, like St. Christopher. The literal dog-headed men. I thought there were a group of people like that, because when they talked about one of the warriors, how he could take on with his staff, like 30 war-trained men, like 30 hard-ass soldiers, and defeat them.
Yep.
And this is just one of them. But it never did go into a personal description of how they looked, or outside of the characteristics that go way beyond something that a normal, even a battle-hardened soldier could do. Like, that's some kung fu type stuff. That's Shogun Saturday.
Well, I tend to think that the lion men of Moab looked like lions and men.
That's what I'm saying. I think that, personally, I do too. I think that they were, I hate to say cryptid, because they interacted with, but when you get into that, that's another deep study.
What were they told? They were told to preach the gospel unto all creatures.
Unto all creatures.
I'm not going to say that somebody that's descended through that had no choice can't be saved. That God said, preach it to all the creatures. Now, in the last days,
as it was in the days of Noah, brother, so shall it be the coming of the Son of Man. And
it's a deep subject.
It is a deep subject. I mean, it's one that deserves its own 2 or 3 hours. But when you get into that, and for folks who don't know, I mean, I know Brother Michael in there does, and probably Steve and some others. I'm intrigued by what is it, hebiology or something like that? What do you call the study of the blood?
Hematology.
What's phlebotomy?
That's where the people that draw your blood and do the blood samples.
So it is hematology or whatever.
Yeah, hematology is where they study the blood.
Well, I'm intrigued by just like the whole thing. Like, why is there RH negative? Why is there RH positive? And you hear me talk about being an O negative a whole lot, and that's something that's really, really, really deep. Something that after having wise counsel, I'll probably do a deep dive on a private show or in person or in personal correspondence before I just throw it out in the public. But it is very, very significant. I'll put it that way. Going back to these men of Moab, these lion men in Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, in Deuteronomy and in Leviticus, it talks about the punishment for a woman that lays down with the beast. And then it gives the punishment for the beast that laid down with the woman.
Yeah.
And even as a little kid reading that, I was like, God knows the intellectual level of some dumb beast. Why would he tell his people to punish some dog or a donkey or whatever it is? I don't think he's talking about dogs or donkeys at all.
In fact, he didn't say dumb beast. He just said beasts.
He just said beast. He didn't say dumb beast. When you go a little bit further on, and it's one of the books of the prophets, it talks about at a time of mourning that all these men and women would put on their sackcloth, which is a mourning attire, put ashes on their head, and so did the beasts. It didn't say the sackcloth was applied to the beast. It said the beast put on sackcloth.
Yep.
So what kind of animal going to put on clothes besides those monkeys at Barnum and Bailey's?
Yeah.
So
I've always looked at it. You've talked about the beasts of the field a
Yes,
good
sir.
bit.
Yeah.
And I do believe that some of them are that. But I also believe that they got corrupted too.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And I think you can see the corruption in them when you look at certain ones like the alpha female, for instance. She looks like a large person, like a large jacked up person.
Like a genetically damaged person.
Yes. Her eyes are further apart. Her mouth is way bigger. And I mean, she's ugly, but she's not that ugly. You know what I mean? If I had a gun to my head. But then you look at the teenager, the one I got that footage. It looks more like a chimpanzee with the nose of a human than anything.
Yep.
So, and this is within the same tribe. This is within the same region. So it almost makes you think like how over in Iran, nobody calls themselves Iranians. They call themselves Persians, especially the upper class, the aristocracy.
Well, that's what they are.
Yeah, that is what they are. But there are some that consider themselves Iranians, and those are the common folk. Do you think it's like that? Like how the royalty, I guess, or the chiefs, the upper crest in these tribes and these tribal systems? You see where I'm
The
going
way
with
I
this?
think it works is like this right here. The town that I live in, out here in this rural area, it's mostly white people. But you can go just about 2 miles down the road, and there's a neighborhood of people that are black. We all interact. We work together. We go to ball games together. Sometimes even our kids and grandkids marry each other, and they have children. And I think that's what's going on with that.
That it's just like two different races of the same type.
Two different ethnic groups.
Huh. So like the Kenites and the Anakites.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
And the Raphaim, because they're 12 tribes.
There were 12 tribes. And the features that would be, because obviously every different so-called race, because there's only one race, but every ethnicity does have its own sort of
characteristics.
Thank you. That's really interesting, bro.
Yeah, ain't it?
Ain't it just? It makes me, the more we talk about this, it makes me want to get out there in the field more, bro.
I know it.
Like at the place I work, I was telling you about, there's this parcel of woods, and I'll find myself, on my breaks and stuff, just kind of eating a sandwich or smoking a stogie and just staring at the woods. And I was thinking that this evening, like, man, I gotta get back out there in the brush. Like, I'll miss it.
Yep.
And obviously they missed me too, because that time I went out the last time where there was heavy action, I mean, it's like they couldn't contain themselves. One was running from the Texas side, like he had to been running like Usain Bolt, because you hear him way off in the distance. And every time he sounds off, these coyotes would sound off. I don't know if he's running in the middle of them or chasing them, but the last time you hear it, he's over on the beach on the Oklahoma side.
Yeah, they're able to get across bodies of water pretty quick.
I bet they can jump like the $6 million man.
I've seen how they move. I'm pretty dang sure they can too, and I know for damn sure them wolf creatures can.
Oh, bro, I don't think they touch the ground in these woods. I really don't, unless they want to.
The one that I saw was on the ground until he wasn't.
Yeah, he wanted your ass though.
Yeah, he looked like Superman when he takes off.
Yeah, ugh. It makes me think. I go back and forth because there's a lot of times I was almost going to quit, but at this point in time, I really took into consideration when I saw that Dogman just right down the river in a place that I never felt the need to go to. And of course, the first time I go at night, right?
Yeah.
Like 10 tons of stupid. But when that thing stepped out of that tree line, I saw the cat tail at first. And even then, that would make me want to get some yonder because the windows were all rolled down. If it was a mountain cat, which there wouldn't be one on the river, but still. And it stood up, man. And I don't know what that thing was, but I have a feeling it wasn't. I've taken Dogman out of my footage, so that it's obviously in the area. And it didn't make me any kind of more trepidatious than I usually am about going in there.
Would you give any thought to the underwater panther?
Yeah. And I've seen actual subscribers who had ran into it. I've seen pictures of them. It looked more like that than what people consider to be Dogman, but it was still off. This thing was.
Well, they're all off.
Yeah, this thing was messed up. It was wheezing and stuff, and it stood up, and you could hear all this pop. Like, when you stand up and stretch your back, it was like that times 3. Like its bones were setting into place or something. It was weird.
That's what that werewolf creature did. I told you that's what I heard, popping like that. Like when some shoulder pops or knee or cracking your knuckles, except real loud and kind of a tearing sound.
Yes. It sounded like it was more akin to popcorn popping. As crazy as that sounds, because it was just too much of it.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was, bro. I think it was a werewolf. And it didn't look at me. It was like looking down, and it did this puff, and then it dropped down to all fours. As it dropped down, as it was turning, it dropped down and just went back. It didn't run or anything. It's just like it showed itself to me. I think it was forced to.
Could have been. But I told you, my brother-in-law's crackhead neighbor shot one and killed it.
Yeah, you told me that. And then when y'all came back, it was gone?
Yeah. It wasn't y'all. It was my brother-in-law. I wasn't with him, but he told me about it. And he said it looked like it was sick and like it was it was scrawny. But he said its legs was like a kangaroo.
Yep.
They were thick.
And it had the build of a swimmer. That one swimmer, what's his name? Who smoked pot and they took his medals away. He had an abnormal Phelps, yes.
Yeah.
It had an abnormally long torso, it looked like to me.
Mm-hmm.
And like skin was just stretched over muscle. Like
that's what they said this one looked like. And it was looked like it had sores on it and patches of hair missing. Like it had some kind of infection or something or disease.
Oh, this one wasn't that bad off. Damn. But
yeah.
But the lady in Arkansas that reached out to me, the one that had the little family unit on her property, and they were so comfortable with the family was so comfortable with them They left out crayons and stuff. And she said after a few years, she believes it was the male or the female learned how to write simple words. And she said she patched up the male. That's the one thing that stood out in my mind. After this
Well,
fight
if you'll remember, the woman in Tennessee, that's her family was with them like that for generations, and she used to trade stuff with them, give them garlic. She said they used to keep bugs off of them, ticks and stuff like that.
That'll do it. It's a natural tick repellent.
And this old guy came over from Russia that studied the Almas, and he went and stayed with her for a while. There was supposed to be more out about it. I saw it back in the early 2000s. It was on one of those History Channel shows before Ancient Aliens, and then those took the History Channel back when they used to tell real stuff.
Instead of propaganda segueing you from the real stuff. Yeah.
And he went there, and he told a lot of what she had told him. She even drew out family trees of them. They'd named them. Wow. She said they had their own language.
See, that's the only problem I have with the Dogman thing.
Well, this was Sasquatch.
I think there's natural. Bigfoot. Oh, Sasquatch.
Yeah,
but I've heard of, and this is coming from people that have no reason to lie. But I've heard, and there's more people that'll say that they're doing the mind speak thing. And you know what I think of that, but
yeah,
that's a flim flam, and it ain't being pulled by the people telling it.
No,
uh-oh, you're doing it again. We must be telling too much truth. But see, that's why I told you, bro. You know, there's no such thing. This is an entertainment only channel. There's no such thing as Dogman or Bigfoot. Come on.
No. Perish the thought.
We're just speculating is all. Now, see, you came back. So you got to play the game a little bit, you know.
Once in a while, at least.
Every once in a while, bro. By this point, they know I'm flim-flamming. I'm telling you, I have no desire to off myself, nor do I want to join any kind of weird group that's going to commit any kind of terroristic act. So if y'all see that, y'all come looking for me.
Or suicide or drink any poison Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I don't believe no UFO is going to come when some sort of comet's passing by to take us off to a nether realm somewhere.
Yeah,
but man, it's just like Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, Pythagoras, all those ancient brilliant minds say. They're the daemon, right? They're these invisible men, just like Derek Prince calls them. And to have a daemon is this wonderful thing because it's going to bring you all the knowledge of everything that it was attached to before. And that's what I believe it is. These invisible men speak with invisible voices. That's what people are thinking mind speak is. Because you never really hear them say, oh, well, we were having this long, deep conversation. They say that they spoke to them.
Yep.
And if somebody's turning themselves into a werewolf, for the folks who don't know, you have to do very, very demonic things in the natural as a man or a woman to even begin to get that type of energy. And then you got to go through these rituals and all that kind of stuff. So it's not something where you drink water from the what's that old saying? That old folklore. You drink water from the paw print of a wolf, and on the first full moon. No, it don't work that way.
No. Well, I mean, all you got to do is look at the Navajo lore and the lore out of Rome, ancient Rome, other places, the Norse. They had to do some terrible acts, terrible things. Yeah.
Terrible acts was a arts and crafts style for the Norsemen. And if you don't believe me, folks, look up Blood Eagle. That's
it was for the
torture.
Romans.
Yeah, the Romans. They made up all sorts of torture
people.
Yep.
And, you know, this because I am part Native American tribes weren't, you know, the gentle people at times either.
Yeah, but it's like we were talking about. You have Native American tribes that were literally land pirates. They were marauders. They would come and kill everybody down to the women and children, and they would take they would only take children under the age of like 7 or 9, because that's young enough where they could forget what came before. and they would raise them up in their culture, and they would just kind of inundate them into their own tribe and build out their numbers.
They adopted.
Say again?
They adopted them.
They adopted them. Well, that's a hell of an
They were orphans
adoption
by
process.
that time.
Yeah, they were orphans. So yeah, I guess you could say it's adoption, forcible adoption. But
Yep.
those tribes, and you can check me out on it, those tribes always had their big dances and stuff, and weird creatures would show up to them, and their medicine men would transform, the skinwalkers they called, would transform into animals. Now, to transform into this animal, they have to kill someone that they sincerely love and get the pelt of the animal they want to transform into. Then they go into some deep cave or dig some hole up in the ground and put this pelt on them and stay in there in their own filth and degradation doing these rituals. And when they emerged, they could at will turn into this creature. And same thing, the Germanic werewolf. That's where werewolf comes from. Were means man. The German werewolf, they have the werewolf belt. Same thing, except that they killed a neighbor or a friend, not necessarily a loved one, but they would fashion a belt. And this is one of those old school belts that went across your whole belly, basically. And they would go sit in a cemetery and do these rituals. And on the first full moon, guess what? They could turn into a wolf. Now, the reason I think they look all jacked up is because only God makes things perfect. They're not making anything. They're perverting something and transforming into the perverted version of it. That's why you have, like Sooner Sasquatch got a few years back, this thing that was in a tree. It looked like a camel almost. It has eyes on the side of its head and canine teeth. That's kind of crazy because eyes on the side, it hides. It's a predation animal. Eyes in front, it hunts.
Yep.
So it's got an amalgamation of the two. It's a perversion. It's an abomination.
Yeah. I saw a video the other day that creeped me out, and it was a deer eating a snake.
I remember you told me about that. And I thought deers were just strictly herbivores.
Herbivores, yeah.
But it was consuming. It wasn't just biting it and killing it.
No, it was eating it.
Gee, Monelli. Well, Lord.
Never
We're in
seen
that
nothing
time,
like
though,
it.
bro. I never even heard of nothing like it before, bro.
Me either. A deer is an herbivore. They don't have canine teeth. They've got teeth like
to eat plants and such.
Yeah.
But the first of anything I ever saw of cryptid from a private source was my buddy Eric. Talked to him to this day, brother in the faith. He was an avid hunter and still is, but it was from one of his partners, his hunting buddies, cell phone. And back then I was in high school. Back then, phones, cameras were very crude. But sure enough, it was a long black panther walking under his tree stand. And when I say long, I mean, Jack, this thing was big. And I remember he showed me. I was like, what the hell is this? Where is this from? And I ain't going to say where it was at, but he said it was from this place around here. And I told him bull butter. And he wanted me to go out there because they had went and looked at the tracks and whatnot. And I was like, no, I'm just kidding. I believe you.
Did I tell you the story about me killing one when I was a kid?
No, hell no, you didn't. What? Wait a minute.
I killed a Black Panther. Yes, I did.
Now, before we get into it, they are Black Panthers, though. Because a lot of people were saying they were black mountain lions. There were some, like, how sometimes the pigmentation for like albinos.
Well, they were trying to say it was the jaguar come up from Mexico, but no, it is the same thing as a cougar.
Yeah. A jaguar. That's what I meant. They were trying to say it was a jaguar and not a cougar because the Black Panther, their snouts are pretty long, for a big cat. And if you go and look at a picture one, like a grown one, and look at a Dogman, that may be what people are seeing as well. But anyways, yeah, tell us about it, bro. I haven't heard this one. Shit, fire.
I think I was about 10 or 11 years old, and I was hunting. I lived up in North Alabama then, and I used to hunt weekend, and I hunted in the morning before I caught the school bus, and in the afternoon before it got dark. Because I lived in the country, and that's how we put meat in the refrigerator. You know what I'm saying? And I had to go down this one mountain, and there's a little creek there at the bottom, and I'd cross it and go up the other mountain and go over the ridge. And on the other side, there was this little cave there, right? And you could build a fire in that cave, and there was cracks in the back, and the smoke would go out on the other side in that other little valley there. And that you could stand there, and I could sit up there hill and look down into that next valley and hunt deer. They would smell the smoke, and it would run the ones out of that valley into the one I was wanting to shoot into, right?
That's a hell of a deal.
Yeah, that was why it was one of my favorite spots. Well, I went in there, and I'd set my gun down, and a single shotgun, I had and that hunting vest on, and I kept buck on one side and squirrel shot on the other, right? And I was building a fire, and all of a sudden, dust starts coming down and rocks. I don't know if you know this, but those old bridges, they used to put up so cats couldn't walk on them. There's something about the way they walk. Guards, like a metal mesh to keep cats from getting on them.
I've seen that before. I've seen that in the Arbuckles.
Yeah, because I've heard that a cat can shake a bridge down.
Oh, I've heard that before too. I
don't believe it.
I don't believe it either, bro. Like,
but you know this, they go back and shake sometimes. Doesn't stay down, but you can feel.
Damn, bro, your thing's doing that. Your microphone's doing that thing, and you got me enthralled with the story.
Where I got better reception.
Okay. Are you on your computer or on your phone?
I'm on my phone.
I got you.
All right. I just
Beautiful.
about had the fire built, and dust and stuff started coming down off the roof of the cave onto my head. And I turned to grab my gun and run out. I thought it was going to cave in on me. And as I grabbed my gun and I looked up, it jumped down off that ledge above the top of that cave, right at the mouth of that cave. It was probably 20, 25 from me.
Damn that.
And it laid its ears back and hissed, and I knew
Ooh.
that thing was coming straight for me.
It showed
and I reached over.
Everything.
Oh yeah, it was bunched up, ready to go. Laid them ears back. I was like, "Oh shit!"
No,
I reached over, grabbed one of those shells. It was the buckshot. No, not a buckshot. It was a slug. I don't know why I said that. And I put it in the gun. And you know those single barrels, you got to flip it up, right?
Yep.
I flipped that barrel up and backed the hammer while I was doing it. When I pulled the trigger, that thing's face was about 1.5 feet from the end of the barrel.
God almighty.
It splattered its head. And there was no way I could drag that big ass cat down that mountain. Well, over the ridge. No. Yeah, over the ridge, down the mountain, and up the other mountain. I cut its tail off.
Yeah.
And brought its tail with me. Its tail was almost 6 foot long.
Whoa.
It was over 5 foot.
See, that's not a mountain lion.
The hell it ain't.
I think there's something else, bro. I think they're different. I think they're their own type of thing, their own type of cat.
Let me put it this way. Its tail was about the same length of its body.
Damn.
From the end of its rump to the tip of its nose.
That's a big cat.
Yeah.
Just eyeing it, how much would you say, like, ballpark guesstimate, how much would you say it weighed?
Shit. That thing weighed right close to at least 175 pounds.
Dad.
Oh, we're good.
Yeah, damn all that.
I had that thing's tail for about 5 years. I'd never heard that there wasn't no such thing as a black panther till, what, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
On TV, they started saying, and I was like, what the hell are they talking about?
I don't
There
think
ain't no
they're what.
such thing as a black panther.
Yeah, well, that's what they call them. I think that they're, and like you said, I subscribed to that jaguar thing for a while because that made more sense. But even in the black jaguars, you can see the spots on them. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like their hind parts aren't usually solid black, and sometimes their face has patches. But this, what my buddy, what I'm sure you shot and my buddy showed me, this was as black as a black kettle. This is blacker than Toby's ass. It was a
Yeah.
black cat. Could you
Black as a
imagine, bro, that
sable
thing
mink.
stalking you around in the woods at night? 'Cause I was fishing one time, I was 16 on somebody's land. Let's just say I knew this person because that's a lie. I didn't know who it was. I just heard it was good fishing around in this pond. There was a runoff from the slough, and where the slough was, it's section. It was like I was walking through like a miniature valley. You know what I mean? That was raised up above my head, the ground on either side, and that's how you sneak in there and fish. And I heard noise up on top of that, up above that slough. And I didn't think nothing of it. It sounded like something big, but, I knew there was cattle and stuff grazing somewhere near. And for something, I just felt it. Something wasn't right because everything went quiet, like you say. And I looked, and it was on the incline. As you're about to walk out of it, I looked, and I seen these little beady-looking eyes in this bush. And you could see its front paws, like a cat scratching like he's about to pounce.
Yeah.
I had this 25 on me, bro, and I unleashed it like wide earth. I shot every bullet in the chamber, and I didn't hit nothing. And it did take off running, but man, that was a long walk out of there.
Yeah. I can tell you right now, this
that was just
thing,
a mountain lion.
the one that I shot, it wasn't a jaguar, a mountain lion, and it was a good sized one.
That's remarkable, bro. Like, I did get a picture, which I think it may have been a Dogman, but it looked like a cat. It was in the nest with these other Dogmen, and it was during fall. I think it was the fall of 2016, perhaps. And I remember I put it up on the old channel. I need to see if I can get in this old hard drive and get it again because it was crystal clear. It was during the day, and it was pushed back in this nest, and it was looking right at me, of course. And I just seen a bunch of shadows moving around inside the nest. So I snapped a few pictures, went on about my business. And when I looked at it, it looked like one of those like Black Panther cubs, but it was in the nest with Dogman. And that's another thing. Why the hell are these things making nests? You know what I mean? They're akin to birds' nests. When you hear us say nests, that's exactly what they are. They're like birds' nests. They get a bunch of debris, foliage, and they'll build it out like a nest. And it's almost like they put a top on the top of it. Or a lot of times that's where you'll see the teepee-like structures.
Yeah. But all other animals make dens.
Yes. That's another thing. Like,
dens.
why don't they make dens? I'm sure they do. Maybe that's where they put them to hide them, I guess. But, well, there was that one time, again, Chuck Slab's crew was down there. And they called us over the radio. Me and this old boy were chasing this one that I talked to him not too long ago. He said it just disappeared on us. I think that there's hideaway holes or ambush holes that are all connected to one another. And they're like ant lions. They'll jump into this hole and they'll collapse it behind them. And what you'll see is a divot. Because I do remember seeing one of those divots.
Yeah, I've seen several of those.
And folks, if you see those, or if you see an earthen mound that looks like a fresh dug grave, like if it's rained recently, but the ground is dry and you see some wet dirt that's in a mound, stay away from it. Those are those ambush things. Because what would be better? They don't care what they break on the way down. And all those roots and stuff on that topsoil are holding the ground above it together. So they can hear it. Sounds probably like somebody walking on a wooden floor. And as soon as you're above it, they just reach up, snatch you, and pull you down. They don't care what they break on the way. That's going back to Pallades' books. That one family that was playing hide and go seek. I think it was a boy and a girl. And the boy went behind a bush. And the guy said he was watching the bush the entire time, but he never emerged from it. I think he was stepping on one of those antlion holes. I think he went on that bush, and because think about it, right there where it's all rooted, that'd be a perfect place for it. You drag him down, and the hole's going to collapse within itself.
Yep.
So another FYI for those people who want to become field investigators or who are, start looking at, especially if you're in a river bottom, start looking and moving, start looking for and moving around the down trees that are in that river bottom. You're going to be surprised what you find underneath it. Honestly, when you start messing with those things, you're going to probably feel them.
Yeah.
You might get your ass whooped. So just follow your gut. And, but yeah, when you move one of those trees, you'll see those are the gates. Those are the entrance ways.
And I'm going to give you another good piece of advice. Before you go in there, you better be prayed up and paid up.
Amen. They'll smoke your game. These things ain't us. All that having tea parties and high five and all that kind of stuff. Sure, some people may be doing that, but I go to a place where I believe, and others that have gone with me, they have an affinity for me. And I ain't ever had no tea party with one. I've not touched one. I've been extremely close, but I don't get the feeling that they want me touching them. And I think the only reason they allow me to see them is because I went through there for so long, day after day. They're used to me, and they know I've not ever brought them any kind of nonsense. So as far as I know. But
if they start looking like your old boy that's doing all that good footage, you might want to back up about 20 yards and get you a long zoom.
Yeah, I'll talk to him. I talked to him last night, as a matter of fact, and man, he's going hard in the paint over there. He gets some good footage. But yeah, they're looking at him like, "Hey, man, what you doing in our yard?"
I'll be honest. All the ones that I've been around, it was like, you know how it is when you kids are playing tag and running around after dark?
Yeah.
It was sort of that kind of vibe. It was like you were dealing with some kids out there just being mischievous and having a good time.
Right.
Or it was they were watching, they knew I was there, and they were just keeping an eye on things. And that was the older ones.
Yes.
You know, they'd be out there and they just keep an eye on you. But I knew better than to get too close, you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You have to read the situation. You have to have discernment, I believe. And there's a lot of people who go out there. They go to these occupied areas, and it's all up to these creatures. These creatures allow us to see them. We're not that clever. I mean,
no,
they're not going to be able to sneak around in your house, and you're not going to be able to sneak around in theirs. And as soon as your foot hits green grass in these occupied areas, guess where you are? You're in their house. So there's no clever tricks you're going to do. I've heard of the people, well, we put up a mock tent and we put a flash camera inside the mock tent. Yeah. They were watching you.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, they were watching you do it. That's why you got no footage. I mean, these things, they have an intelligence about them that's akin to, if not right at like an adolescent or maybe even a teenage kid's level.
Not only that, they have discernment.
They do have discernment. Bro, they will run and I've experienced this twice. They will run after a rain when the wind blows and knocks out a bunch of the water pellets out of the trees. You know, when they hit the ground, it sounds like somebody tapping their feet. Yeah. They have the situational awareness and the governance of their emotions to run as soon as they hear that, like as soon as the first drop hits, they're running along with it.
Yep.
I mean, they're amazing creatures.
You can feel them around you, especially if you have any discernment.
Yeah.
But you would be appalled at how close they can get to you without ever making a sound or showing anything. And I'll tell you another little secret. Even when you have discernment and you can feel them, a lot of the times that's because they want you to. They can turn that off and get real close.
Which is ridiculously scary.
Yeah.
But, well, I'll put it this way. I think they can up to a point, but they ain't got nothing. They ain't got nothing on the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit's going to tell you to get some yonder.
Oh, yeah. But I told you what happened when I went to my father-in-law's and we were putting up that hunting blind.
Yeah.
When
I
I
don't know
come
if you
poking
have you
out of
talked
there,
that
he
on the
was there waiting.
have you talked I don't think you've talked about it on the show.
No, I don't think I have either.
You care to tell them?
Sure.
All right.
Me and my nephew last year went to set up a hunting blind so we could take our boys out there hunting. And after the hurricane about 3 years ago, my father-in-law's got about 15 acres and it's in a very rural place. And he's got a pond on the backside of his property. And it used to be open. We had like a 100-yard shooting range back there by the pond, me and my brother-in-law. But the hurricane blew a bunch of trees over and it had sat there for about 3 years. And all the briars and brambles and brush had grown up and grapevines. And we were following a game trail. There was deer track there. And there was a hole in the brush, just like through about 4'5" of just dang near impenetrable brush. But that hole was made out there, so I was squatted over with my walking stick going through there. And just as I poked my head out the other side, about 5 foot from me on my right side was a bush. And there was a big one standing in that bush, looking right at me. I think he was sitting there thinking maybe one of those deer would come back through or something. And he was just standing there, and I just stopped and said, I don't even remember what it was I said because I said it in a panic, kind of.
Yeah.
I said something to my nephew like, oh, I left in the car. Hold on, instead of backing up. And I backed all the way back out of that brush. And my nephew said, well, I'll go through there and get it opened up for us. I said, no, I'll do it. Just go over there and get such and such. Sent him over there a few feet and gave him a minute. Then I turned around and I went back through that hole. When I went out the next time, he wasn't there.
Yeah.
But that
you gave
thing
him
was
time
crazy.
to get back.
Yeah.
And
Because he could hear us
you,
talking and he knew there was more than one person, I'm sure, because I talking loud.
and
You
that's
know
what
how you do it.
yeah, I was just about to say that's how you do it. Like a lot of people try to sneak through there and they put on the electromagnetic eliminating clothes and they'll spray deer piss all over them and all that weird stuff. Folks, it don't matter what you do. You can hike to the area from miles away. They know you're there and they got a sentry to your left and a sentry to your right. Probably something in front of you watching you too. And the whole time you go through those woods, whether you hear them or not, you got eyeballs on you. Sorry to tell you, like they have a governance over their own emotions that's, I think, almost better than ours, bro. Because you were saying how, and I'll let them in on a little secret. I don't know if I told you this, but the very, very first piece of footage I got was on film. And so you still got a little bit of interference, but not as much as you'd have with digital. And I was walking straight through the river bottom, and there was this black mass on the ground behind me, and I noticed it. But and it was one of the kids that pointed out. It could have been my daughter. I think she was saying, "Dad, that thing behind you is always the same. You know, it's always behind you." Like basically saying it's not further away as you walk away from it.
Yeah, it's pacing you.
Yes, and bro, I start for whatever reason, I started filming over my shoulder. I don't think I heard it, but you know, something told me to do it. I start filming over my shoulder, and you see this thing like a lightning bolt get back into the dash back into the brush. Now that I heard, and I remember looking around, and I walked to that spot, and I remember looking all the way around me, full circle, and I didn't see nothing. And then I walked on, and you can see this thing lean its head out and look and watch me because I was still filming behind me. It leans its head out and it's looking at me. And I guess it thought better than to get back behind me again because that was the last of it. But this thing was pacing me at least on its belly now. 8 feet? 8 at the most. And that's frightening because I didn't hear nothing. And when you're out there, folks, you don't have noise pollution. You ain't got thumpity cars coming through. You don't hear people's TVs in their house. It's complete silence outside of creation itself. And I didn't hear anything.
You know why I said they can kind of turn it off sometimes?
How they can what?
Think on this. How they can kind of turn it off sometimes. Where you can feel them
Yeah.
so strong you can point at them with your eyes closed.
Yes.
Me and him were talking, just shooting the shit. I didn't feel nothing until I stuck my head out of that bush and I felt it. And look, I didn't turn my head. I just looked, out of the corner of your eye.
Yeah.
And that's when I saw a piece of it there.
Ah.
I'm going to tell you right now.
You're breaking up again, brother.
That wasn't the only one out there. You're right about that. I felt it.
Of course not.
After I went to the brush. I started, I seem to forgot something. I started easing back.
Bro, I was probably like the Dick Van Dyke Show to him when I went out there by myself. Because like every time I would be close to one or I'd shoot one, like I'd get a good shot of it. And then you could see it in the film. I'd always pan over to the left. And a lot of times I didn't put the audio on there because why? You know what I mean? But after a while I started because anyways, you know how people are. Oh, where's the audio? Yeah. But I didn't want him to hear me like pointing and talking madness to myself. And I was, well, look at that one. Look at that squirrel. That ain't no squirrel. Yeah,
that's how you have to do it.
Yeah.
My grandmother
you're bullshitting them.
Was Indian, and my granddad had some in him too. And I told them about it when I was a kid. What I felt out in the woods, that thing coming, in my direction.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the advice I was given by my grandparents. When you feel that, put your head down and look at the ground and start talking to yourself just absent-mindedly. Never make eye contact with them. Turn around and walk back out the exact same way you came in. And you start rebuking it in the name of Jesus under your breath, in between talking like a dum-dum.
Talking like a dum-dum. I always show this piece of footage, but it is my favorite. And I
also wanted to tell you another thing. The nephew that I took with me, he was -2.
He was on -2?
Yep.
I'm going to tell you off air this experiment that I ran. And it yielded results. Speaking of O-. But let's see. Yeah, bro, like we got to start getting you on that computer. Like your audio is R2D2.
It was even worse on the computer. That's why I started going to the phone.
Was it really?
Yeah. Let me try one more thing.
You're hardline in on that one.
Yep.
Folks, here's a little example of what we were talking about earlier with the spiritual entities that are surrounding these things. And that's what I believe, and I'm sure that's what he believes too. This is a short on the channel. I don't know the point of origin, but now check this out. You can still kind of see this thing's outline. Just barely. And I mean, the only reason you can because you saw when it disappeared. Now watch this. This is crazy. I don't think that's their coat. I mean, let's say they're a natural beast, which they probably do have some sort of angel DNA. Who knows? But they're not doing this. It's the stuff around them that is. And it makes you think, if that is their point of origin, why are they doing it? Why are they trying to preserve them? Maybe it's just because they're their ancestors, their offspring. I don't think so. I think it's something more nefarious than that.
I'll tell you what I think it is after you're through.
No. Yeah, I was done.
Those things used to live in the cities, in the temples, in the ancient world. After Jesus came, Christians ran them out. And then they was able to start hunting them. They remember that.
Huh. And
you just gave me,
it does make sense. You just gave me another thought. you know, when I was thinking that these things are strictly just a beast, and some of them may be, but now with the theory out, or the theory you proposed, which I sort of subscribe to in some of these things cases, that they're the offspring, the genetic descendants of these gibberines.
Yeah, gibbering.
They're the genetic descendants of these gibberines. How easy would it be for the spirits of their ancestors just to ease on into them? They're genetically the same. Very easy, I would think. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
And what are those things? They're cursed spirits with all the appetites and desires of a man
and you know
without a
what?
body to fill it.
Down on the Red River, a case that was really, really famous in Brown Springs, my research area, is where the girl and the guy were found. The girl was ripped right down the middle like a phone book in one of them strongman contests, and the guy was, half of his body was found chunked up into a tree. And if I told you where they found it, when you get down here, when I'll show you where they found this body at, you're gonna flip, because it wasn't in the deep brush at all. But it makes you think. I've not heard anything before nor after that of there being an incident of that nature. And of course, like, the people that were there, which I got to speak to one of them, say that this woman was accosted. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
It makes you you don't really hear stuff like that. You've heard, you know, stories like that, but I don't think that's them. That goes completely against their modus operandi. They want to be left alone. They want to remain hidden. But who's to say that one of their ancestors, one of these vagabond spirits, didn't just enter into it, saw an opportunity, and goes back to, like you say, preaching the word
How
out to
they like
all
to
the
come up
nations.
to, how they like to come up to houses with single women.
Yep.
Women that's men's working out of town, especially at certain times of the month.
Yep. It's peeking in the windows and stuff like perverts.
Yep.
With animals too. The witches' knots that they find braided in these horses there, and they find evidence that they've been accosted. It's a wicked thing, bro. I don't think that's these, let's say natural, for lack of a better word. I don't think it's the natural creatures that are doing that. It may be them physically doing it, but I don't think that they would draw that type of attention to themselves. It goes completely against everything that I've seen personally, and everything that would make sense for a hidden group of anything to do.
Yeah.
Man, I wish one
It
would
all
come up
makes
to my
sense
house.
when you look at it.
That dynamite I was telling you about, bro, I'd find some good use for it if one ever came up to the woods looking at my daughter's one.
Yeah.
And have a candygram for Mongo.
Yeah.
I'll slow this down a little bit.
Listen to that
And
golden
stabilize
voice
it
guy.
some more. This was
Shut up, Doss. All right, here we go. This is the teenager, folks. You've seen it before. Back by popular demand. This one wanted to whoop my ass, bro. Every time I see this, like, and I thought it was a tree stump.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up, I remember, like I said out loud, and I think my daughter may have been with me this day. I don't remember. I think she was. But I was like, man, look at that tree stump. It's got a face. And I zoomed in, and you can see me go, whoop. Right when I saw it, and I saw its mouth start chewing, like, you can see me, like, I was focused on it for a minute, and it was still, and I saw its mouth moving. I was like, oh, shit.
When you say, hey, I think we forgot something in the car.
Yeah, no doubt. I forget what I said, but I remember shooting off to the left because she didn't see it. And she was there with me that day. She didn't see it, and I pointed off to the left, and I was like, well, what about that over there? And she was like, what over where, Dad? There ain't nothing over there. And I was like, oh, no, look. Look how close that was, though, bro, because I'm not zoomed all the way out. Like,
yeah,
right there. That's how
what
close
kills
this
me
thing
is you
was.
can see him chewing.
Yes, bro. How did I think that was a tree stump, though?
Because it was very still.
It really was. That's pretty doggone close, man. There's something the matter with DDoS. Yeah. Hey, Mo. That face has a stump. Our stump has a face, you mean, child ahead. There's all sorts of stuff in there too, though, bro. Like, that wasn't the only one. Look at this one right back here. We talked about this before, but that don't look spiritual to me.
No, it's not.
Yeah, see, these were the punk teenagers. They want me to make a mistake, bro. I could feel it. Yeah. You could see the color, different colors in its eyes and stuff.
Yeah. When I watched footage the other day where I could zoom in on it,
Man.
I saw some of it was unreal.
Now, see, look at that. Like, I wish y'all could see my mouse. Like, it's to the left, like right underneath that branch, and it looks like it's whistling or something. That's a bad filter on it, though. There's some of that other stuff in there too, though, bro.
Oh yeah.
It's almost like they're inseparable. Which brings to mind the Patty film. Where was all that stuff on the Patty film?
It's a good question. I've noticed when you watch it now, it almost looks like there's kind of a bubble around it.
Yeah.
Of movement. But that wasn't in the original. That's been altered.
Like, look at this thing's mouth, bro. Like, see how it kind of protrudes? It doesn't look like it's kind of protruding out.
Yeah.
I would have whooped the fire out of that thing if it would have came at me. But I don't really tell people as I turned off the camera, I was like, hey, punk, I don't like you watching me and my kid while we're walking. Mind your business. oh, Mr. Doss, I'm sorry, sir. Don't be sorry. Be careful.
Don't make me have to challenge you to an arm wrestling match and rip your arm off, beat you to death with the bloody end of it.
I'm telling you. He obviously didn't hear the origin of the King of the Gorilla Tribe.
Yeah.
No. But all that was just made up in the moment, folks.
Is it just me, or
does
it look like there's a bigger one behind it?
That's what I'm saying. Like, to me, all right, tell me where you see it at. Hold on.
Right behind it. It looks like shoulders and a head coming right behind it.
Yep. And it's squatted down and it's facing towards our left. Yes.
It's like it had Big Brother or Mama or something behind it.
Now, this was the one, I believe just from the face, I think this was the one that ran up on me. This is one I call the teenager. And I could always feel it. It had its own little signature, whatever, in the air. You know what I mean? And the only time I've ever had problems is when I felt it. And I think it was this punk. Like, I told you about that one time it threw a branch, and it was from this area now that I think about it. It threw a branch, and I just went off on it. Now, I won't say what I said, but like I don't know what my problem was, because I never go in there with an attitude, but it gave me one. Because there was a limb right in front of where this branch that it threw. And it hit this limb, and it did kind of startle me. And I looked over, and like this... the branch that he threw almost hit me in the eye, but I think there's no way they don't make mistakes like that. I think he was trying to startle me. I may have startled him though, because I cussed him up one side and down the other.
That's like a blind.
It is.
That's a structure that they've built, and there is two of them sitting there.
There's the one in front chewing, and then the one behind.
Yep.
You see, it's kind of it's tilted. That's the one I was talking about. That is
it's peeking around it.
Yeah. See, these were the punk kids, man. I think, it's way bigger. It looks like, because it looks like it's, you know how you can sit down flat on your butt with your knees straight up?
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it's kind of doing that number. Its head is massive too, bro.
Yeah.
These were the punk kids, I'm telling you. They're like, what are you doing in here? Scram, fella. We don't like you coming through our neighborhood, see? And see, it looks like its mouth is moving, bro. Like little kids cussing.
Moving.
It is moving, isn't it?
Looks to me like it's chewing something. It's like it's got a leaf sticking out of it or something it's chewing on.
Like something was sticking out of his mouth.
What?
See, man, this is a bad filter, bro. It makes it like...
I see it.
There's the one. This one's a whole lot better.
You can see its eyeball.
Yes,
Well,
bro. Like that's a physical one.
Yeah, that's a huge eyeball.
And it is chewing something. It's either chewing something or mouthing.
No, it's chewing. See it sticking out of its mouth.
Yeah, it is something sticking out of its mouth. They're just eating and watching me.
Yeah.
But this one in the front, the teenager, it has hate in its eyes, bro.
Yeah.
Like that's a I don't like you look. I don't like you coming through here, see? That's when the outlaw said, I guess that's why they were, when they watched this footage, they called me crazy going out there without a gun. A gun wasn't going to help me unless I was Wild Bill Hickok.
No.
See how close them things were? What's up, Barry
I will
Browning?
say this. I don't care what nobody says. If you got at least a 9mm or a 45 or what I used to carry, or I've still got it, a 40 caliber. If that thing's that close to you, you put about 5 of them in its face region, it's going to find somewhere else to be. It may not kill it. I think it will personally.
I was about to say it'll find someplace else to be, the pearly gates. Because you shoot that thing as close as it is in the face with 9mm, it's done.
Yeah.
All these stories, oh, I emptied the clip on it. Well, what were you shooting? Pellets?
Yeah.
I don't think you need an elephant gun to put these things down. I just
Yeah, you don't have an artillery piece to kill like all these people talk about. It's craziness.
Now, Big Mama? No. Big Mama, I mean, she was so dark and blending the shadow so much, I don't think she'd let you get a shot off on her. But
20% of my belief is missed. Them things move fast. And they move
faster
weird.
than you imagine. Yeah, faster than you can imagine.
And it's a bit of a moving target that ain't as fast as those things are. It's hard to hit a man at a dead run.
Yeah, or a moving target, let alone, I don't know if you've gone to those ranges where you move in certain directions and stuff and shoot at the same time. There's a reason why there's a reason why there's elite, soldiers, because that shit ain't easy. But again, they don't understand, Merle. They're looking at something they don't have a reference for in their mind. Yeah. Like their computer's going to crash. It's not going to be, oh, I'm going to pull this gun and just blow this thing away. You're going to be staring at it, and your mind's going to be going through the Rolodex of known.
Oh, believe me, I know.
Yeah, it's going to be like, nope. Sorry, boss.
Even when you know what they are and you've seen them before, it would still be difficult, I'm telling you, to shoot one of them.
Yes.
Because you do fine motor skills when that adrenaline does. And, in most gunfights, people don't aim. Like something like 90% of all people that are killed with handgun is bad distance, 10 feet or in low light conditions. And what they do, pick it up. They don't even really point it good. They just point it in the general direction and start pulling the trigger.
It's the American way of shooting. But just that, I mean, and looking at that, bro, like I said, that teenager was my size. I never saw it standing up, but it just looked like it would be a similar build to me and probably the same height, maybe even shorter. I don't see how they go from that to what the alpha male was, which I don't even like saying what I measured it at because it don't sound real, but where it was. And I went back way after the fact because, I have one of those encounters. I just kind of hang out at the house a little bit and let them have their own. But when I went back and went to where it was standing and I measured up against a tree, it said 12 feet. Now, as hard as that is to believe, that's where I measured it. And I did it a couple of times and I had somebody else do it, but it was in between 11 and 12 feet. Then I got the picture in front of the cemetery that I sent text, and sure as shitting, we did a side-by-side comparison. Barry Brown, not Barry Browning, but Barry Brown was 6'3", and he held a stick as far as he could above his head, and it hit him right like underneath his collarbone. And when you superimpose the pictures on each other, that's a monster, bro. And for further confirmation, the hunter over on the Texas side, when the hunter was chased out of the deer blind, the hunter that saw that creature in the area that was in contact with Biscardi, who led us out there, he said straight up, he was sitting on top of a battery, and he heard it come through the woods. He said he saw it with his ears, and where this growl and this roar came from was at least 12 feet. And he said the ground was shaking when this thing, and there was two with it. And sure enough, when the hunter was chased out of that blind, he said that he had eyes on one right in front of him, right behind the blind, but there was another set of red eyes to either side of him. And the only place they left open was the opening of that blind. And I'll say it's a deer blind, folks. It was a tree house, plain and simple. Tree house that was like 8 feet off the ground. And he said they came and start pulling it down and slapping the side of it. I told you about that. That was the one where like, get him, get him.
Yeah.
No, sir. With Biscardi, old man Biscardi took me out there with his team. I was like, bro, thank you for bringing me onto a murder scene. They're like, what? I was like, let's get out of here. You said you found a cell phone up there. Yeah, we turned into the police. Well, did you turn in like yourselves? Because we're about to be listed as accomplices in some murder. Because we hiked in there what seemed like it was more than 2 miles. For sure, it was more than 2 miles. And the first thought that went through my head when I saw that, now I kind of pieced it together because the bottom rung was broken. They couldn't figure it out. I was like, well, he jumped out and missed every rung except this one. And there's no way. Yeah, and broke it. And there's no possible way that he's alive. We
either that or one of them big things stepped up on it.
Ooh, bro, I'd have had a heart attack.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you right now, my heart would have exploded.
I'm telling you, because he said he looked like something was burning, but then all of a sudden he seen it going back and forth, and it would just before you knew it was right up on him. And he looked to the left and behind him, and the same thing, these red glowing eyes looking in there trying to pull the thing down. Because he put up this amazing treehouse or quote unquote deer blind with just barbed wire that he brought with him. And everything he found around him. Like, he cut down some trees, but it was an amazing structure. His expensive cell phone was left there, his hot and cold thermal, and a bag full of bullets. And when they were like, go up there. And I walked up there and I was walking around. I could stand straight up in it. And I'm 6 feet tall. And I mean, it was sturdy. Like there was no give in anywhere you step. And when I grabbed the bag that they said the bullets were left in, I put my hand in it. It was nothing but a bunch of wood. It looked like something grabbed a tree and ripped a piece of it off and like crumbled it up in its hand and threw it in there and threw it back in that treehouse. I said, hey, you said there was some bullets in a bag. He's like, yeah, did you see him? I was like, this shit. And I showed him the wood chips and he kind of looked at his partner and they start talking amongst themselves. I was like, man, I'm leaving.
Yeah, they came back some shiny stuff, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. The man puts this in the boomstick. We probably should take this too. The only thing he took was his rifle and just his rifle. But he went out on the river because this was a small little peninsula looking thing off of this farmland. And
yeah, that wouldn't have made me feel any safe.
Bro, I still don't see how he did it. It looked like them Squatch went through there and just started indiscriminately ripping up trees. You saw big divots from where they literally ripped them up and just threw them.
He wasn't safe when he got in that boat.
But he was, though. If they wanted him, bro, I hate to say that, but
history.
But he wouldn't have been safe, bro. They would have got in that water and drug him down, and he would have been in a pineapple under the sea.
Yeah.
He would have been gone.
Would have been in about 3 pieces on the bottom.
Yeah. Bro, I would have, I don't know if I could have had the wherewithal to do that, but I remember walking it, and it was a hard walk to get from where the mouth of that treehouse was all the way to where they say around the area that the boat was. I wouldn't be surprised when I do run into him, if I ever do, that he's missing an eye, because it was just so many down trees, so much foliage. But yeah, when I had it in mind that he came the same route we did, I was like, man, I'm going to be called in to this murder investigation. Because they ain't going to run no 3 miles over arduous ground away from one of these creatures. And they look like they're running on concrete on a basketball court through that stuff.
Yeah.
How did they not disturb more? No, go ahead.
To them, it might as well be the track around the football field.
Yeah, no doubt, bro. That's what I'm saying. Like, how did they not disturb more foliage than they do? being as
That's
big as
a
they are.
damn good question. How do they go through brush that you can't penetrate?
And it
So you'd
barely
have to
looks like it's,
hang through and not even hardly move
yep,
it.
exactly.
I
Further
have
down
a
on the
question
river
for
it
you than
is.
that. I've thought of it many times. How does deer go through that?
That is a good question. Have you ever seen like a deer skeleton caught up in them brambles?
No.
I haven't either.
The only thing I ever saw a deer cut on was a barbed wire fence.
I've not even seen that, bro. Tell you the truth.
Well, he didn't die there. He was actually hung on it, and me and my cousin were riding to the corner store. It was trying to pull its horn out of the fence. And I was going to jump out and cut it throat, but it gashed and took off.
You're gonna jump out and cut his throat. Spoken like a true Okie. But man, like that always kind of amazed me. And I've seen him. I've seen one of the little ones. It looked like a nub on a tree, stub on a tree, a knot, I guess you'd call it. And it was me and the kid. I think she had some of her friends with her or something. Or maybe my girlfriend at the time, her boys. And we rode up to the main area, and I drove a little bit closer than I usually do. And I was like, and it never occurred to me. I was like, man, look at that stump on that tree. And it looked like a crazy looking knot coming out of the tree. And when I turned off the motor and the engine kind of settled down, I started rolling up the windows, and I don't know if that sound is what got it or not, but it made some weird squeaking noise and dropped down to all fours and took off like a bolt of lightning. And this thing had to know that terrain because it was moving so fast, and it barely disturbed anything. You could see with, little leaves moving that it hit, but it was about the same size as I guess a newborn baby would be.
How about that?
These things have to
I got
know
it.
way more than what we give them credit for. They have to know
Yeah.
the sound of my motor. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think that thing would be standing there if it was another person's vehicle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That just furthers the. I don't know. They're super intelligent. I don't think we know how intelligent they are really.
I bet the ones up in North Alabama got the kudzu.
Yeah, that stuff. I heard the ones in northern Alabama like are Gugway. You know what that is?
Yeah.
Do they really kill the ones up there? Are they really like the violent ones?
The one where I live, they were just the ones
They
you're
were what?
talking about. The ones where I lived weren't. But I
I
heard
think
of
you had the
some
same
up
ones I
there.
did.
Yes, I've heard of some a little bit north of where I was at that was violent, but the ones where I lived weren't. We
Yeah,
called them prowlers because, back in the
Prowlers.
80s, you didn't talk about this kind of stuff because it put you in a little padded room.
But everybody knew about them though.
Everybody knew about it. You go down to the store on the hill and say, "We had prowlers last night. Was anybody prowling around your place?" Yeah, they sure were.
Huh.
Everybody talked about it. They just didn't say, a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. They just say prowlers.
Bro, I could understand that because I ran a show for years and am still an active field investigator. And I'll throw out little crumbs, you know what I mean, to see if anybody bites on it, and then I'll start talking openly.
Yeah.
Prowlers.
Back then, you didn't do that. I mean, if you talked about Bigfoots or UFOs or something, they'd go to measuring you for a coat that laced up the neck.
They get your padded room and your pajamas ready for you.
Yeah.
Man, and we're at 2 hours in, man. This is fun. We haven't done one in a minute, but my sisters, and this was all three of them that lived here. My oldest sister lives in Nebraska. They lived here at the time, rather. But I was a kid, probably 13, and my mom was still alive, and I thought they were lying. So I always, like to drop dimes on them. I was a little informant, but they were saying how they went to the fair one time with our parents, and they had this semi, and it was spray paint on the side, a real Bigfoot inside. And I was like, "Oh, y'all are full of it." And they were all like, "No, we've seen it." And my sister Laverne was saying, she described it to me. She said you went through this, they sectioned it off to where it was this long hallway, and you have to wait in line in this hallway and go out this other door. But she said that they all went and seen it, and it was way back. They kept it way back, and there was one cage or one set of bars, and then there was another set of bars where the creature was. And she said that sitting down, if it stood all the way up, it would be outside of that freighter. She said that it was curled up in the back, and it was like 10 feet tall. And I've never heard my sisters talk about anything like that before, but all of them talk about remembering going to go see it. Bro, it makes me think. This is back in the 80s, early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I bet it was really a Bigfoot, bro. I bet some of them good old boys that ran these, local carnivals or whatever, somehow got a hold of one. And she said that I asked, well, did it move? Did it do anything? She's like, no, it just looked at us. And it looked mad, they said. So
There was an old dude that used to do the state fairs. In the early 80s, a lot of people saw it. I never saw it, and I went to the state fair every year, but I know people that did, and they said it was real.
No shit.
No shit. You know, the
That's
same
crazy.
circuit that came through where you live comes all the way down and went to Florida.
Yep, they were it's
The
probably, I
Southern
forget the name
Circuit.
of them. Yes. And it was almost like, those old blues musicians on the Chitlin circuit. They go to the same 9, 10, 11 places. That's crazy, bro. So, I mean, I owe my sisters an apology because I went and told on them. I was like, man, y'all lying. I'm telling on y'all. And I went and told mom, and I just remember my mama laughing. I don't remember whether she denied or she just laughed and said, oh, baby, blah, blah, blah. And then I went and played with my G.I. Joes or something. I don't know. I just remember them. I thought they were tricking me. You know what I'm saying? But looking back with an adult mind, they were all like, no, I'm telling you, it was real. And my mama would have flipped out if she knew they were lying. She wasn't a big, she wasn't big on lying. And I don't remember her being mad. I remember her laughing. And you know what, man? Remember I told you how I showed that footage to my dad? And just his casual, just laissez-faire attitude towards it, which it made me angry for some reason. Because I knew he was a sergeant in the Army. You know what I mean? Like a paratrooper. So I just figured he'd probably seen some stuff and for whatever reason was keeping it from me.
And how much of the area where you live at that age was rural around y'all?
How at the age that I was asking about, like how much was rural?
How old you were when that happened? How much of the land around there where you lived was rural?
Oh shoot. Quite a bit. I mean, it was city, but it wasn't what would you call
it was on the outside.
No, it was I would lived in like actually in town. But it's Ardmore's strange, bro. It has these swaths of woods that go through the entire town. And one that's connected to the hobo jungle, literally it's like a green knife. It goes all the way through town up to the river, northeast of here.
Well, then you know good and well, especially back then before it grew up. People knew what the things were. My granddad and my grandmother called them woolly boogers, Boogerman, old slewfoot. Y'all had names for them.
Old slewfoot. That makes sense because they're known to be around sloughs. Never thought about that. In Arkansas, in Rogers, right outside of Ponds Bluff, where the farm is, I told you my mom, I got a whooping for whistling one time because she I think it annoyed her, but she specifically told me, all right, we're at the farm, don't be doing all that whistling. And me being the young investigative journalist at however old I was like, but why, mama? She's like, because you'll just, how did she put it? She said something about spirits because I don't know if they believe them to be spirits or that's just what they were telling me. But I was walking around whistling. And we stayed at my great-grandma's there was a big, nice 2-story house, but for whatever reason, my great-grandma would stay at the original house that was built. And I was down there talking to her because, of course, I like hearing old stories. And well, I'm conflating two stories, but I'll finish this one. I was sitting down there with her, and I remember a knock came on the door, real light, and it was my mama's voice. And I looked at my grandma. She didn't even look up. And I was like, great grandma, mama's here. And I was getting up to go answer. And she's like, baby, don't answer that door. I was like, but it's mama. She's like, that ain't your mama. That's a spirit. What did she call it? She called it something else. Basically a spirit. I forget the word. Haint, maybe? I think she called it a haint. And I kind of looked at her and I was like, man, I wish I would have went to the big house with everybody else. Like, you know, I just thought she was crazy. But I sat back down, and like an hour later, mama showed up from going to visit my uncles, her brothers or whatever. And I was like, hey, mama. And I went over to the side because I didn't want to be disrespectful. I was like, hey, mama, did you come here an hour ago? She was like, no, baby. I was with your Uncle Anderson. I was like, well, 2 hours ago, did you come? She's like, no, D, why are you asking me? I was like, because I heard you knock and you said great grandma's name. And she's like, no, baby, that was a spirit. And when I heard her say that, I was like, oh, shit. That's the last time I ever sat in there for story time with great grandma.
Yeah, well, think about this. They ain't far wrong.
No, they're not. They're not far off at all. I wonder, though, because I don't see my great grandma who's married to a preacher, or my mom for that matter. I don't see anybody on that side of the family putting up with no ghosts wandering around on the property. You know what I'm saying? And it was in the middle of a pine forest, this farm. Like you drive down this road, ponds as far as the eye can see on either side. And then it opened up and the river was 100 yards away on the property. Damn. We gotta go to Rogers, Arkansas, bro.
I hear you. I'd like to check it out.
Because I mean, I remember I was told explicitly that if I went inside that tree line and nobody could see me, that was an ass whooping.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me things like that without telling me why. So I just, when nobody's around, I went to go feed the pigs one time, and I just kind of eased on in the tree line. And I got that, looking back on it, I got that feeling. I think, bro, that's probably what that feeling was. I bet it was him.
I'm certain.
Either that or, the certainty of if my great grandma or my mom or one of my sisters saw me and snitched, that I would get a biblical ass whooping. One of the two. Both are equally scary.
Oh, yeah, especially at that age.
Mm-hmm. But I always loved going to that farm, man. It was cool. Besides, like, oh yeah, and I got a spanking for getting for whistling because I was walking around the house where there were swans or geese, like locked up in this big enclosure thing, and my great grandma told me to go close it because for whatever I didn't know geese were this smart. They would go in the evenings, they'd come back in this enclosure by themselves. And I hated these geese because they would always chase me and peck at me and stuff. And I think I was whistling because I was nervous or something. And then my mom heard me and she was like, boy, I told you about that whistling. And the sun was going down, right? And she was mad about it, bro. Unusually mad. She was a very tempered, reason type of person. But I got a couple of swats. I was more confused.
Geese are very disagreeable animals.
They really. How could you get them to come back into that enclosure though?
Because that's where they nested down at.
Because they'd be gone and then they come back like right around sundown.
Yeah,
but all those telltale signs. Yeah, because it was an enclosure and it had this like canopy thing on it. But all the telltale signs, bro, is my mom probably grew up with Squatch on that property. Yeah. She always said they were real.
I would guarantee it.
I wonder why she didn't ever.
Because people didn't talk about it.
The only time she ever did, and she didn't even talk about it when my sisters were saying they saw one at the county fair. The only time she did is we were watching that Boggy Creek monster or something.
Yeah, the Legend.
Yes. The Legend. Yeah, exactly. It was me and my dad watching it. Came on regular TV one day. And my mama didn't really subscribe to me watching nonsense like that. So I thought I was going to be in trouble. But she was like, oh, that's real, don't you, baby? And I was like, what? She said, yeah, that's real. That happened close to where the farm is and where I grew up. I was like, what's real? This incident, what happened is real? She's like, yeah, what happened is real. And that monster's real. And there was no laugh that came afterwards. She wasn't one that joked around like that either.
Yeah. When I was a kid, when we got on the trot line and stuff like that with all the old guys, they'd build up a bonfire and have them a little bottle up there, and they'd tell you right quick, don't get up away from this fire, boy. That old Boogerman will get you. And they weren't laughing. They wasn't joking.
The Boogerman. I do remember my dad saying something about the Boogerman.
Yeah. Don't get away from this fire, boy. That old Boogerman will snatch you up.
That's what he said. Like, we were fishing. It was early in the morning, like probably 3 or 4 in the morning. It was him and me and my brother. And we're in the mountains up here north of town. And I had to go pee. He's like, boy, don't go too far. The Boogerman will grab you. And I just kind of laughed it off. You know, I didn't think nothing else of it. And he never said anything else about it. But guess what? Guess where there's been cases of Bigfoot sightings? Right on that same property, bro. So
I'm sure
he did know what that thing was.
Of course he did.
Because the non-look of shock offended me in a way. Like, because I asked him, you know what that is? And he's like, I don't know. And you can
most of those old people grew up in the country and on farms. And where do you think those things are getting most of their stuff from?
Yeah, there's easy pickings on most farms. Grab a chicken, you know, grab a hog.
Yeah. Grab some corn.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet feed.
You know, I need to get a hold of the cousins that still live on that farm because it's still in the family. I was thinking about building a house out there because it's 100, right at 100 acres, a little bit more. And it's right on the river.
Have you ever noticed how on all those old farms, they used to have a big barrel they'd put that sweet in with a lid on it that they could secure?
I see what you're saying. I bet that's why, because the slaughterhouse, she had a slaughterhouse too, great grandma. And it was like in a ridiculous spot. I remember it being in a ridiculous spot because it had grown up around it. And it seemed like it took years to march to that slaughterhouse because my sister showed it to me one time. I was like, dang, ain't we there yet? Like, why is the slaughterhouse so far away from the main house?
Well, now you know.
Yeah, now I know. It trickled down in the blood, bro. That's what it is.
Yep.
I bet my mom, because she was a lot like me. She's very, had a very investigative, inquisitive mind. I bet she was out in the woods like I would be if I lived on that farm.
There ain't no way she lived on that farm and didn't see some of them.
Yeah, there couldn't be. Like you said, it was way out in the middle of a pine forest. And I think that the closest neighbor was 3 miles down the road. There was this church. There was this church when you turned onto the road. And it was already dilapidated and abandoned like when I was a kid. And then you keep going and it seems like the road narrows out. And I don't know what's further on down the road, but you go through, you turn left and you go onto this really, really narrow road. And I mean, it was thick through there, bro. So yeah. I remember going down the river. I don't remember feeling the same thing we feel today, like going into the woods or anything, but we never did go there at night either.
Yeah.
And we were told specifically not to because my sisters, you know, they go down there and drink or something and I drop a dime on them, of course.
You also have to keep this in mind. On them old farms, when the folks is running around before the sun go down, or when they took youngins down to the creek or whatever, they usually had a gun with them.
Oh yeah, my uncle, my great grandma's son, my great uncle, I guess he would be. He was like Wyatt Earp. That's what I called him. I call him Sheriff Earp, and he or Marshal Earp. He always had a gun on his hip, a 45,
yep.
Like, and he'd only put it on when he was at the farm.
There you go.
Huh?
Them things know it, and they keep back.
I think
especially during the day. You know, they probably can.
My Uncle Joel would probably shoot one of those things ass off, bro. You could see it in his eyes. Like, he was the nicest guy in the world, but it just looking at him, you'd think he was the meaner than a rattlesnake. He was nice to me, at least. And he'd always be looking around.
I follow the way I was taught. Anytime you fire a gun, you're supposed to clean it. And when you clean it, and keep it clean, there ain't no gunpowder smell to it.
Mm.
Them bullets are airtight and watertight. They're not gunpowder in them bullets.
Yeah, but I mean, their eyesight. Look how big their eyes are. Their eyesight has to be phenomenal.
Oh yeah. And also, witness people pull them out and go to popping them off, and they remember it.
Yeah, that's their booms. That's the man's boomsticks. And of course they remember it, and that's even more proof positive that they do. The case over there on the hunting grounds in Texas. These things chased this guy off the land, and it still wasn't good enough for them. They hate guns so much that they went and took the bullets, and Lord knows where they did with them, and replaced it with wood chips. So for whatever reason, in their own logic, they said, I'm going to make it look like it was before we took these bullets out.
They're sort of like monkeys or raccoons, man. They like shiny stuff. That's probably why they took the bullets.
I think they took them because they know they go in that gun.
They have.
But they do like shiny stuff, bro. I left them the old Zippo lighter that I didn't want no more. And I remember dropping a GPS. Sweet Luna, what are you doing? No, ma'am. What you got going? I ain't paying no attention to her. I guess in a couple hours she's over there doing stuff she ain't got no business. Good dog. But anyways, I left them this Zippo and something else like paper or something. I want to see if they could start a fire. And I dropped a GPS thing on it. And bro, I've never seen that lighter again. It wasn't in the break in the tree where I put it. And you know, I've been all over that place. I don't know what they did. They probably took it and threw it in the water or something. I don't know.
They took it back to their den.
They took the paper too, though.
Sure. Why not?
Let me ask you this, man. Have you ever seen, because you're an outdoorsman, have you ever seen little blocks of like wood from a campfire in places they have no business being?
Yes, I have.
That has to be them, huh?
I suspect.
Because and it's not in the lowlands. It's not just in the river bottoms. It's in places that like it has no business being, like when you get into deeper brush.
Where there ain't nobody been in a long time.
Yes. Old growth forest. Deeper into the brush. Yeah. And it
stacks of rocks.
Yes. And little holes that they've dug up, which I think they're digging up like maybe worms or something. I don't know. But all this stuff would be in the same general direction. And I never understood what they would want like burnt pieces of wood for, except that maybe it still had fire on it.
I'll tell you something that is just as weird. They don't just stack rocks. They'll get little like river rocks, the little round ones, and make patterns with them.
Yep. How are they bringing these river? They ain't got pockets. Bro, I've seen like
they got big ass hands, damn near the size of a frying pan.
Yeah, that's true. Because I've seen those river rocks in places like you'd need a satchel to carry them to, or either that or they're making multiple trips. But I didn't think that they're massive ass hands. What are they doing that for then?
They're marking out territory or trails or both, or maybe they just like making patterns.
I've seen them do that off the trail, like even animal trails, like behind a row of bramble bushes or inside of bramble bushes, and you can tell who else? I don't know any other kind of creature that would do it, not out in the woods.
Have you ever seen the bent trees?
Yep, all the time, bro.
I'm talking about like a big live oak tree that you can tell they've been doing it for probably hundreds of years. Something's been bending that limb into a pattern, and it's grown into a gigantic limb.
Yep. Now, some people have told me that the old natives did that for some reason.
Yeah, well, I would consider them things old natives too.
Yeah. They're native. They're old native. Luna, get out of it. Come here. All right. Well, folks, I guess that's close to the show because My dog's over there into something. But folks, this was a good one. This is an old school Bigfoot knowledge show.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again soon.
Absolutely. We'll do it again tomorrow night, man. Been away too long. Need to get some of that good old BDRP energy from the crowd going. We got a good audience, man. We got one of the best audiences, if not the best, on YouTube. Every now and again, a knucklehead will sneak through, but if we don't mollywop them, somebody in the crowd will. Yeah, Michael Gordon's another place we can go, bro. Michael's a brother in the faith, and he's up there in South Carolina. Isn't that right, Mike? When my daughter got bit by that pit bull, I was making the track from North Texas, Gainesville, where I was staying, up to my hometown here, that she was going to see a specialist about it. You know what I mean? Because dogs' mouths are gross, and it was so deep that they had to sew it shut. But it kept getting infected and kept popping open. So I was taking her to see the specialist, and we talked to each other all the way up there and all the way back. And we've been friends ever since. But he's got live action on his property, bro. Like he got a picture of an adolescent that was coming over there being ornery. And guess what? Right off the river.
They love them rivers.
They love them. Well, you know why, right? The Indians say that they come from underneath the rivers.
Yeah, just like the underworld pan.
And when you start thinking about it and you start putting it together, oh shit. That's my bad, Byron. I was getting rid of these videos that we had done. Jump back on if you can hear me, bro. That's my bad. I was getting rid of the intros and stuff from this back page. May have to invite him again. Whoopsie daisy. Merle's only the second person I've ever kicked off stream. My own co-host. I sent another invitation, Merle. I sincerely apologize. There he is. Sorry, Cat. I was getting rid of those videos that we were showing, and gonna put up the exit video. But I did want people to see before we did take off, because I did tell them I would, the one from Russia where the car is being chased on all fours. What are you into? I think we may have another serpent in here or something, bro.
Told you, you're a hoe handy.
Yeah, you weren't kidding. She keeps going over there to where I keep all these computer parts and stuff in this chest. She's like trying to dig under it like it's the ground.
Did you get rid of that nest?
I got rid of the big one.
Well, that's Star.
Yeah, I bet it is a nest though, bro. It has to be. Dadgum snakes. Yep, there she goes again, back over there. Yeah, let me hurry up and get over there. Real quick, this is the piece of footage I was telling y'all about earlier, which is one of the coolest I've seen as of late. And I just wanted your guys' opinion on it. Some people say it's fake. When you see how fast this guy was driving and how fast this creature got up on his vehicle, I don't see it as being fake. Either that or this guy driving. I'm not driving, I'm sorry. The guy in the so-called suit is really wasting his time making prank videos, pretending to be big. He should be in the Olympics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he can run
really
on
be in
all
the
fours.
Olympics.
No doubt. He should move to America and then get into the Olympics. Oh, Russ
Yeah, he's a fortune.
No doubt. Here it is.
I want to see how your boy reacts to some of that footage from Jacob's channel.
Yeah, I've been pulling it down, stabilizing it. There it is. Look at that. Look at that. That thing's huge, bro. Look how fast he's going, man. Like,
Погоди, стой. Снимай. Снимай. У тебя зум, есть зум? Прибавь изображение побольше, можно? Двумя пальцами.
Прибавила.
Ruh-roh.
Я поближе подъезжу.
Смотри.
And see, look, it looks like it got close to being on the road, but it goes back up on the hill. I don't know, like.
Вчера он же, по-моему, был, да?
Ага, это он.
Yeah, this dude's definitely a Russian DOS. He's backing up. No, I'm going to get closer. It'll be all right. Where'd he go?
I don't know. He ran
I
away.
don't know. I don't either. That's crazy. Go back on there. Add to stream. Boom. There we go. This guy's crazy. I think this is part like it's really shaky, but look how
call at one point.
Yeah, look how fast this thing is coming up on him. There it is on all fours, barreling, bro. There goes. It drops. It's dropping back. It's like on all fours, then it's running.
Yep. It'll slow down like it's trying to sucker, and then it'll speed up on them.
Yep. And just that burst of speed that it has now, like this kid who's got the cameras freaking out.
Yeah, I've seen this footage. She was screaming at that point.
Yes,
and he's telling her to put the camera on it. Put the camera on it.
Now, I don't know if it's just perspective, but this thing looks huge to me.
It does me too.
I mean, because that draw stuff it's running through, that'd probably be up to our chest.
Yeah.
There, look at it running next to the vehicle. And it's got that Groucho Marx walk. Like, if you ever see one of them walk, like it looks like Groucho Marx.
Yep.
Shoulders stay steady, and it's kind of lean forward.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is real, bro. I honestly do.
Yeah.
I may be wrong, but I don't think so, man. Like, because
there's no way somebody in a suit run through.
Exactly, bro. And it's barreling through it like it was. Yeah, it's barreling through that stuff like it's not even there. Gorthoff German. I want to do my own breakdown. Drop a 1 in the chat if you'd like me to do my own breakdown of this footage. Because there's very, very subtle things that I think, I forget who it was, Bigfoot Tony Jabroni. I think there's something, there's a lot of stuff he missed. He's not a field investigator. But God bless him, he does his best. But if you'd like to see old Uncle D do a breakdown of it, drop a 1. See, I mean, look, he's covering some ground. Now he's backing up. It looked like a little bit. There's a way to kind of de-blur this a little bit more too that I want to try. Well, we're not going to get too close. Just film it. It'll be all right. There it goes. Back to all fours. I don't even think gorillas can so effectively run upright or on all fours. Because they run like gorillas. They kind of like propel themselves forward, you know?
Yes, like they grab the ground, pull themselves forward as well as push with their feet.
Exactly. It's not like gorillas where most of the time they're on all fours. A lot of people don't understand that. Like, they can stand up and move for short bursts, but it's an awkward looking. I don't think
they
that's
actually kind of run more like a cat when you think about it. On all fours.
The Squatch?
Yeah.
I'm trying to see the length of his arms, bro, because like these Squatch got uber long arms.
Yeah.
There's a piece of footage. Somebody was trying to say it was a bear. It wasn't even footage. It was a picture from somebody's trail cam. And it was of an adolescent. And it's like 2 or 3 pictures. And the third one, this thing's on all fours, this young one. And it's got its nose all the way down into the ground. Now, people will say, oh, it's a hog. It's this, it's that. It don't look like anything but a Sasquatch to me. Oh, yeah. Tomorrow, folks, I got a very special show for you. The nephew of Oklahoma's last great medicine man, Buster Ned, one of the first friends I've made. when I went to public school, and one of my oldest friends, Jason Ned's going to be on. That's going to be around 6:30, 7 o'clock, and we're going to regale you with tales of our old adventures. Even when it was running up there on that hill, bro, it was moving. Now, I think this may be Bigfoot Tony's breakdown, but I'd rather do one of my own. He did a good job. I'm just giving him hell. But he did a really good job at showing the dimensions of the creature.
Yeah, that thing on all fours right there. It's using them arms.
Yeah. So you're saying the Squatch runs like a cat?
I mean, sort of. What I mean by that is that you know how they'll propel themselves with their back legs at the same time, put their front legs forward and hit and like kind of dig into their claws and pull at the same time.
I see exactly what you're saying now. But gorilla, if you ever watch a gorilla charge another gorilla or charge something,
they do the same thing.
Big cats?
No, gorillas.
Yeah, it's like they'll grab the ground and they're thrusting themselves forward.
Yeah, with both sets of legs, they're really digging in. Or arms and legs.
This is a remarkable piece of footage to me, bro.
Oh, yeah, it is.
And I just can't see how somebody would say, oh, this isn't real. This is wearing a suit. Somebody in a suit, you never see him fall. You never see him look awkward as he's going through all that tall grass.
Yeah. Well, there's some people that you take and plop one down on their back porch while they're having their morning coffee, and they would just get up and while they work in the house, and you say to them about this.
And just like old boy said, where's that one sociopath that shot the mother? And I'll say he's a sociopath just because of like the interview I saw and the way he was describing the incident. And from his perspective, the dude's a sociopath. He said straight up, oh, they look like little, how'd he put it? They look like little black kids with Down syndrome. And after this, he explains how he shot one down off a hill. I was like, gee whiz, guy. Maybe he left a black kid, a black id-K out of it. You know what I mean? Before you said how you just shot them down like dogs. But I believe that dude. He took a lie detector tests, and the person administering the test says that I believe wholeheartedly that he believes this incident happened, which means he wasn't lying.
I'll tell you right now, some of the sport hunters, if they could get away with it, they'd do the same thing to people.
Oh, you know they would, bro. What's that movie with Ice-T? You remember that movie?
Which one?
It's one where I guess he was in more than one. The only other one I remember is Tank Girl, but it was one where he was a homeless dude, but he was like a homeless veteran, and they kidnapped him, or they didn't kidnap him. I think they took him and a bunch of other people, like, and said, hey, we're going to pay you to stay out here in this cabin and blah, blah, blah. But really, they were hunting them.
I never saw that.
Really, bro, it's an awesome movie.
I'll have to watch it.
I want to say it's
the game. Ice-T.
Yeah, Ice-T's awesome. I want to say it's The Game, bro, but I know The Game is the one with Michael Douglas and Sean Penn.
Yeah, I'll just go to IMDb and look up his filmography and find it.
It's The Deadly Game, maybe, or something of that.
Maybe.
Yeah, and that movie's bad to the bone.
I'll have to watch that.
Yeah, the pull push run is exactly right, Mike. It's crazy how close these things are to us, but then it's crazy how close they are to gorillas. It's like, but it's crazy how they're not really close to either one of us. They're a really strange being. They're their own thing, really. You know, I hate it when people compare them to us because they're not us, and they're not necessarily gorillas. They're in a weird spectrum of their own. They're a hominid, I guess.
They're an amalgamation, I think.
Yes.
They got so much stuff in them, I don't know what they are.
Shit, they got chloroform? Chlorophyll. Chloroform's knockout juice.
Yeah.
Chlorophyll, that's stuff that's found in plants.
There's a place in the Bible where it talks about it, and in the book of Enoch where it says that they use when they were corrupting all flesh, that they mixed everything. It was men,
to make their bodies. Yeah, that was
animals,
Book of Enoch for sure.
plants, and insects.
And because they made their bodies out of dead things, didn't
That's
God
the
send some sort of
Raphaim.
the Raphaim? Yes. Didn't they? I don't know. I'm going to do a study on all those tribes.
The
I
12 tribes,
think.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a study on those tribes here pretty quick, because they all seem to have some weirdness going on with them.
Well, they did. The Anak long neck people, then you got them big cone head ones.
And it's all in the Bible too. It may only mention it once or twice, but the descriptions of the weirdness it's biblical, you know. So that'd be a good study. You know what? Sorry folks, I'd like to apologize to you guys. We've missed the Sword in the Spirit the past handful of Sundays, but I want to get back on that. It was a lot of fun. I think it did a lot of good fruit can and will and has come from it. So let's try to shoot for that for this Sunday.
Sounds good to me.
And I know there's extra biblical, acknowledgement of all, if not most, if not all of those tribes.
Yeah.
So it'd be really interesting to see what other writings say about these abominations.
Good.
If they turn out to be anything other than, because I know, like you say, I do believe there are some that are the beasts of the earth. But if I get some vision one day, or the Lord says, "Hey, son, check it out," and it ends up there, these tribes, I may do something terrible to them. I mean, honestly, like they're not supposed to be. And that's one thing that old boy said that killed that female. He said it like 8 times. He's like, I just had the feeling they're not supposed to be here. They're not supposed to be. I never got that feeling personally. I think there's some sort of beast, but if I find out any different, well, I have to be the cryptid Terminator.
The first time I described the one that I saw real close up with the flashlight that night, the very words I used to describe it was just one of God's creatures.
Exactly, bro. That's the feeling I get. I'm not half joking, but they're not. Even that ugly teenager, it don't seem like it's like some abominable creature.
Well,
if it would have put its hands on me, I would have turned it into an abominable creature.
Just because they're the flesh and blood ones, the physical beasts, I think that they've got something in them. But I think it necessarily makes them evil. Because
I agree with that, with some of them.
I know that they're attracted to the word of the Lord.
They are, bro. I'll never forget, as long as I live, looking through that FLIR and seeing all the ones just peppered throughout in a circle around us. And they were literally just listening to us talk about the Lord. Now, what demon's going to do that? I'm not saying they won't, because there's demons in churches that sit there. They come in with the person. They sit there through the sermon. When the person gets up, they get up and follow them on right on back out. I'm sure they're uncomfortable. But
when they come to learn like that they're stepping on them is heavy.
Say one more time.
The times that I've witnessed what you're talking about, when I was out, we were talking about the Lord, and they come, that other stuff ain't on them heavy.
The other feeling ain't there at all. And this was at night, bro.
Exactly.
The only time I've ever felt comfortable walking through all the Brown Springs at night. Even when I pray and, I've got that protection, I can feel it. I can feel it just right on the outside of that hedge that's around me, or those angels that protect me, or whatever the case is. It's like they're pushing that stuff back out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
It was non-present that night. So that's interesting.
About the Lord, that's praise.
That is praise. We were literally talking about the Lord and saying what the Lord has done for us in our own personal lives. It was the coolest most heavy duty. How do I put that? Like, we saw more creatures in those 3 days than I ever had in 3 days prior to going to it. And there was tons of people with us. And the ones that weren't necessarily born again believers in the Lord Jesus Christ, they left after day one. They either left that night or they left the next morning.
Yep.
So imagine that.
It makes a difference.
All the difference in the world. So since the BDRP is back, not like we went anywhere. We just missed a few days. What am I talking about? But since we're going to be doing shows and you're going to be getting some content again, I do apologize for not going hard in the paint as much as I wanted to. But all that's changing. You got a lot of cool stuff coming. But in honor of Mr. Majors beating his case, we'll let you go with Kane. You have a good night.
God bless and good night.
You think this is new to me? Do you know how many rebellions I have put down? How many worlds I've conquered? How many Avengers I've killed? And you think you can beat me? I am King!
Polo to the flow though. You already know though. It's out of real for real. You see it, ho, just flow though. Reppin' that's on photo with a fofo on your bro though. Cause that Jodo thought that he could rob a player for some no though. Oh no, also